Hey everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for X's for Show, your absolute favorite media response show. And today we're talking comics. You can check us out at X's for Show. As for me, I am Nico, and you can check me out at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental.
And I'm your producer, and you can find me in the corner at Kevo Really.
And it's a big day for dudes who wear predominantly one color and then sometimes switch costumes. We're taking a look at the Resurrection of Magneto and the current adventures of Daredevil in whatever...
Which is technically part of a resurrection.
Yeah, whatever's going on there. It's a little... But in a good way. You know, there's times where it's okay. Like Stonehenge. Stonehenge is...
It's a classic example.
Yes.
Oh, he frozen.
Oh, no. That's okay. We'll take over.
Yes.
We got Tori liking our rockin' tunes. We got the X-Men theme rocking.
We got him back. He unfrozen. He moved to the beat, and it defrosted him.
And we love it.
Nico, where last we left you, we were saying that Daredevil is like Stonehenge in that it's kind of good. Ooh, I also had some a Catholic and a Jew walk into a bar jokes for this occasion.
Well, I did, of course, dressed as the long-suffering Catholic. Oh no, Tim, I see that comment. Tim, don't you worry. Tori's jumping on when we get to Daredevil, right? Which is unfortunately, it sounds like kind of during the Bruins game. So I guess you'll be brewing up the replay tomorrow. Sort of like it's sort of like we've got our very own comic sports center. It's very exciting. So let's start with the aforementioned chosen person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to talk about the 3 Daredevil books coming out, because you told me the last time there were 3 books with Daredevil in the goddamn title coming out at once, and I will tell you that you live in the Twilight Zone. But
have there ever been 3 Daredevil books coming out at once?
Maybe during Shadowland.
Okay.
Like, you know, but this is a golden age of Daredevil if your bar is kind of low. So I like what's coming out. I do. But there's like,
well, I mean, and you know, 3 books in and of itself, regardless of quality, says a thing.
But I will say that one of my picks of the week keeps being Gang War Daredevil, which I think is one of the goddamn sharpest books on the market right now.
Yeah, I mean, we love Elektra. What a queen. We do have a big question that is related to both.
Hit me. Question me.
I mean, would Matt Murdock and Max Eisenhardt ever be friends? Would the Catholic and the Jew walk into a bar? Do these guys... They have so much in common for me curating our books for the week. When I read them, I'm like, there's a lot here. But in the Marvel universe, looking at each other, coming face to face, walking the streets of New York, would these two ever come to a point of congruence, cohesion, friendship?
Okay, I'm going to make an argument here.
Yeah.
If Marvel created the Justice League, and who are they? They're people really connected with justice, right? So you got good old lawyer Daredevil, and you've got a guy who is definitely associated with trials, Magneto. Could they be friends? Sure. But I also think we should get Cable in there, who we now know has a domicile hanging out in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And
is a lawyer.
And if I can just extend the joke a little bit further, an absolute mental powerhouse who is of Islamic faith, I think Monet St. Croix could add a beautiful amount to that conversation.
I would give it to Dust instead.
Wonderful.
Monet St. Croix has always given me vibes of raised of the faith, but not believing. You know, she's not Muslim. She was just raised in a Muslim family.
It's like if your family shopped Coach growing up, but now you yourself only buy Burberry. I completely understand.
Precisely. Nailed it.
Okay. Well, then what do you think, though? Do you think these two would be, buddies hanging down at the bodega?
I could see a world. I could write this. Okay. For one thing, I don't think Matt has had a lot of positive father figures since his dad died. And I think the only father figure he has is Wilson. And it is the Oedipal father that he must kill.
It's all very put your tiny hand in mine.
Yes. But I think that Magneto could be in a situation like I love the Marvel's Justice League where they're actually like going for justice in the world. They're trying to right injustices. They're doing restorative justice for all the criminals that they round up. But I could see Magneto being a really strong confidant and somebody for Daredevil to talk to. Somebody who I think is very of the poetry of his faith, but is not necessarily the best at being in his faith in a day-to-day way. Tori says Matt loves the shepherd and Max. Max loves how much Matt reminds him of Charles. God, Tori, you're the best. Oh, fuck.
Also, I feel like Max Shepard has to be the name of a gay porn star that
100%.
Tabor.
It's what Joseph uses when he can't make any money because Magneto's face is plastered all over the news.
Can you imagine JoJo, the world's saddest go-go boy?
Whipping his gray ponytail around like Sasha Colby. I really actually, this book, Resurrection of Magneto, and the relationship with Storm that has grown out of Ewing's writing really reminds me that Magneto can connect with people, and I could see a not dissimilar relationship between Matt and Magneto.
Okay, well then I think we're in a great place to transition over.
Truly.
Let's talk about some Magneto books. I want to start with number 1. I liked Magneto, the miniseries.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was fine. I
Okay.
liked it. Okay.
Yeah.
Resurrection of Magneto. You know when your friend sits you down and is like, check this out, it's Julian Lennon. And you're like, and they're like, no, but it's brilliant. And you're like, and they're like, no, keep listening. And you're like, you see where it's smart, but it's not for you. And you see where it's in the tradition of something so great, right? And then they do the same thing to you with Sean Lennon. The only one who got it right was Stella. I mean, Stella McCartney, girl knows what she's doing. But I really feel like Resurrection of Magneto is a B+ book for me. And if you want to buy something, you should go out and buy it because I really see the quality here. I felt like there were so many moving pieces. And Kevo, this is not a request, but if you happen to be able to find those old school light up phones that like when they ring, like the kind of phone that like you could see through and had all of the light up parts in it.
Oh, yeah.
If you could find a picture of one of those, I kind of felt like that about the Resurrection of Magneto. I'm a little too distracted by the parts inside to appreciate that it's still a phone. Like, I don't know that this read to me like Magneto being resurrected the way it read to me like, look at all the pieces and Magneto's coming back.
Yeah, and this is something that I am really learning about you that I think is an important marker. You expect to get what is on the packaging. And if the thing you get is really good, there's the phone. I loved that phone. I had one of those.
Me too.
If the thing you get is a really great product, possibly like a life-changing product for you forever, but it is... Oh, wait, you disappeared. Now you're coming back.
If the thing I get is a really great product.
Say that again.
If the thing he gets is a really great product, but...
Yeah. If the thing you get is a really great product, but it is not as labeled, that's going to be a real miss for you. And there are times where you will say something like, I did not respond well to this book, and I don't get it until you kind of explain it, and I'm like, well, yeah, that actually makes total sense, because this was kind of not the resurrection of Magneto, regardless of how one feels about what the pieces inside are. And I really like the pieces inside. Ultimately, this didn't do what it said on the tin. And I think I allowed myself to be dazzled enough by what was inside. Or I shouldn't even say dazzled, because I have problems with how it all fits into the context of the rest of what's going on in Marvel. But I was interested. I wish these other books weren't coming out, I guess. I shouldn't even say I wish they weren't coming out, but like, I wish that Gillen hadn't picked up so heavily on the stuff that Ewing had started in Defenders Beyond.
Well, and I think part of what makes it really jumbled is that we're looking at a situation where there's X-Men Forever that's supposed to be bringing back Jean, then there's this, then there's Rise and Powers and Fall, and we're having such a complicated renaissance for the nature of Magneto, the nature of Storm, the nature of Jean Grey. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing, and TK, I want to run this by you. I'm bringing it to you first. This is the mixtape version, okay? So I think what we're seeing, especially with things like the almost limitless multitude of DC iterations and Marvel doing things like Infinity Warps at a faster rate, these creators know that we're closing in on eras where a number of these characters are no longer going to be copyrighted in the same way. And so they're trying to break free of that original iteration so that there's other versions to rely on and to kind of work with. I think Krakoa ending the way it is so quickly with this big fanfare is so that this is always an era that they can come back to. And this idea of Krakoa isn't available until 1975. So this will be blocked from public domain much longer than, say, Magneto himself.
Interesting. When do the first Marvel characters go up?
Whatever, Steamboat Willie to 1939.
That's good math. Thank you. I know we've got Superman in 2025, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the
that's
reasons
the big one.
It's one of the reasons I see this happening is because Superman is like so. I almost want to be like Superman got decriminalized. Okay, so there was this period of time where like if you touched a character, touch him nice. He's the moneymaker, right? That's the breadwinner, right? Like you can kind of do whatever you want. Like I mean this really positively. I mean this as a queer person who identifies with his Latin heritage. But like you can make Robin queer Latino. Hey, that's totally cool. Yeah, no, but Batman's straight. And he's probably white.
And apparently he doesn't eat pussy.
Oh my God. That's probably why his jaw is like that. He's always just thinking about the sad things he wants
Steel
to do.
trap.
The editors won't let him. But in the defense of Batman, the idea of Supermans that aren't that straight white man identity has become so much more significant as a result of knowing that pristine identity of Superman is going to soon be off limits. Though, again, he won't be able to fly. Let us not forget.
This is Bounding Leap, Superman.
This is Bounding Leap, Superman, my friends.
If you start with that, can you tell a story where he learns to fly? Never mind. This is for a copyright lawyer at some point.
Well,
different episode.
Come with me. I can't quite make it alone. Because now I'm looking to a lawyer to save me. I'm just gonna make.
Are you holding out for a hero?
I was just doing "Learn to Fly" by Foo Fighters.
I know, but then looking for a lawyer to save me is not a line.
No, yes. See, thank you. He's with me. Everybody, thank you.
Daredevil guy.
Looking for the Daredevil guy. I'm telling you, Dave Grohl, we love you, and you would make a great Daredevil musical.
We need him. We need to rehearse with you in person more. That's what we need.
Dave Grohl, we need to rehearse with you in person more.
Daredevil, Blind Justice, coming to Broadway this fall.
That would be the ultimate irony if Daredevil on Broadway did amazing.
Man, and I think everybody would sit in the seats and yet no one would see it.
Burn. So DC has Elseworlds. DC has really acknowledged that their Tim Burnham with Nico could have gone all my life. I've been searching for something. Yeah, you expect Nico to zig on his Foo Fighters references, but he always zags.
Hey, look, if you walk out on me, I'll come walking after you.
I love that song. You expect him to zig, but then he just runs in a circle and falls down.
That too.
Magneto. I think any of this was supposed to be about Magneto.
No, Magneto.
Magneto too.
DC is like somewhat prepared for an omniverse. I mean, everybody has used the word, but for the company, it's the multiverse. It's everything we control, and we make new universes that we control. To me, the omniverse kind of says, like, what about all the stuff that is in reader and fan consciousness that we cannot touch, that we have no connection to, that can't really be a part of what we're doing, but we know is part of what our readers are doing. DC seems like even marginally prepared for. I don't think any, corporate capitalist institution is really prepared for that. But compared to Marvel, DC has like thought about it at all and given us any hint that they care. Marvel, with Marvel, sometimes I think about stuff like the fact that Jason Lowe wrote some really good, might as well be canon Madrox fan cartoons.
Oh,
and then
the ones they made canon.
And then, became a Marvel writer writing Jamie Madrox. And there's there's a power to fan response that like deserves some acknowledgement in the superstructure of what these companies say is canon and what's not. Long and short of it being, I see what you are saying, and I do think there are moves towards making the multiverse kind of more pliable honestly, for me, I don't even know that it has so much to do for them with public domain as it does with just MC unification, and just how much people are still continuing to ask, okay, but why is there a white Nick Fury that looks like David Hasselhoff, and where is that guy? Why is there a white European looking Namor, and why is there no, Mesoamerican one in the comics? I still don't think they have great answers for a lot of these multiversal questions, which is why I'm like, why are you starting up the Ultimate Universe again when you're not even prepared for your other popular, your visual media universe?
The same reason you go into Mount Moon with an escape rope.
Very fair.
Right. So here's where I want to take this then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bringing back Magneto,
Mm-hmm.
but not just bringing back Magneto, right? Because one of the things that they have to be really careful about is like, if you bring back exactly the person that died, it does get that sort of like, okay, I just want to go on record that part of the problem with the Buffy resurrection, culturally speaking, is that a lot of people do have a very different definition of what heaven is than Joss Whedon intends. So like there actually is a more cultural heavy, like, oh my God, that was her final resting place. That was literally what some people wait their whole life for. And like, it's not just that it kind of maybe for some people, I'm sure, invalidates the gift. It's that it, does it in a way that feels not acknowledging of the things that it's purposefully summoning up, right? So it's not a bad one, but for some people it clunks. I think this is the exact opposite, but to such an extreme. The Resurrection of Magneto pulls in Taya, who is...
Before we get there, let's go on the journey, because I've got some visuals for all of that stuff.
Do it.
And the first thing I want to bring into it is just, we start this thing with Storm and Craig the astronaut being together. How do we feel about that, Nico?
You know, do you guys remember when super cool, super hottie Jason Aaron was writing Wolverine and
Yes.
not one of the more problematic things? And he gave Wolverine this amazing girlfriend. And she was this brilliant woman of color who sometimes colorists would accidentally color uncomfortably light. But she was this brilliant woman who was a powerful investigator. And you just knew from the first issue, she was amazing and she was brilliant and she would not be appearing after this run. You know, there's this joke that I remember when they wrote Alfre Woodard into Desperate Housewives, it was going to be the biggest thing. They put her on magazine covers for this motherfucking thing. And then I loved the spoiler I read 2 weeks before she was written out. And it said, at the end of Desperate Housewives season 2, the cast gets some shakeups, the show gets some major changes, and Alfre Woodard gets the decision to replace her management. And I just remember thinking, that's true. Craig the astronaut, my friend, I think you should have been on a nice Bravo show where you could get yourself an attainable character. Because this is just one of those, if Storm had a dashboard, this guy's a notch.
I worry you are right. The only way I could see this going really well is if if Ewing is one of the writers who is coming back for what?
Mewing?
Ewing.
Oh, Mewing.
A swing.
Oh, a swing. We wing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the two of you. I love you, and you're killing me slowly. If Ewing comes back for one of the X books and writes Storm, or if it's somebody who is like really into Ewing stuff, I could see it happening. You know, he's not since Peter Corbeau have we really had a guy like this who's like the guy, the human that is hanging out, that can hang with the mutants. And
I don't know. I just Coach in Ecstatics, that's a character that's burned into everybody's consciousness, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no. I'm
Yeah.
not saying
no. I'm not saying yes either. I'm saying
but, we got tons of humans.
Yeah.
Tons of them.
I know. I just it's also good to start here because Luciano Vecchio, one of my favorite artists for a lot of stuff. And I think he actually is doing amazing here. What?
Are you saying Luciano Vecchio, he is drawing caked up dudes for you? I'm just checking if that is because he just
that's kind of where I'm going with, like, where we start. This is a very sexy scene between the two of them and absolutely nails it. When we get into the really deep Ewing taking us on a Promethea journey, I sometimes feel like it maybe just isn't the best match ever. It's not even that he's doing a bad job. I just think it's maybe not the best match ever.
It's that thing where it's not a huge step from Promethea to Prometheus, and they are two very different things in terms of what people think about big myth arc and how it plays into 50-year grandmaster plans. The thing that surprised me the most about this is we live in a blink and you'll miss it world that our creative forces have been seeking actively to be like, we saw what you all thought about Lost. Now, we're not going to do that. We're going to USA Network your things to you. Just open wide. And like, that's really sort of where we've moved as like a media enterprise, which is why that breathtaking. And I mean, like, I'm genuinely mind blown by this WWE 10-year, $5 billion Netflix commitment. But that's just for Monday Night Raw. All major events like WrestleManias will remain US on Peacock for the next 7 years. So like, we're entering a world where all of your streaming isn't on one platform. You want Star Trek? Okay, go to Paramount. Except if you want the movies, you got to go to HBO. But if you want the little kid show, you got to get your ass over to Netflix. And it does start to feel like, yeah, Kevy, you are exactly right. I feel, in fact, like Jimbo trying to duck walk. It is a nightmare. And that is a little bit what this is. I like a world where I wake up in the morning and Dick Wolf says to me, it's Friday. Here's 3 motherfucking Law and Orders. You recognize all of these characters. They've been on Law and Order since the 90s. At 8 p.m., you got Sam Waterston. At 9 p.m., you got Marissa Haggerty. And at 10 p.m., you have King Sex Daddy Chris Maloney. And it's 3 Law and Orders. This guy is making me look for my Law and Orders. This is like when they brought in Munch from Homicide Life on the Street. I had to go find another motherfucking franchise. And that is a little bit how I feel about the Defenders interplay here in it's actually really amazing. That's why I keep saying it looks like so many pieces at work. I'm very impressed. I'm just having a good time performing about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was not surprised when they showed up, but then it did kind of immediately when we see Taya and Adam Brashear kind of commenting on Orcus, and then all their screens change to Lactuca, and we know that Storm is teleporting in. I was like, that's really cool. I feel like this would have been a bigger thing if Gillen hadn't kind of stolen the thunder by saying that the Dominion is Enigma. And I kind of would have rather that reveal been by Ewing in this book that maybe didn't get called Resurrection of Magneto.
It should have been called like Magneto Beyond, or like,
I don't even think it needed to have the name Magneto in it. This could have been Rise of the, because Rise kind of feels like another issue of Fall of House of X. This could have been Rise of Powers. Like if it had been Gillen writing,
okay. Yeah.
If it had been Gillen writing one and Ewing writing the other, I would have felt really good about the give and take of Ewing's totally non-X related ideas from Defenders Beyond starting to show up. But the fact that we pulled these threads first for the X-Men in the last 3 weeks in a Kieran Gillen book that is itself already kind of overstuffed, and like we have kind of come to a consensus that we feel like some of these things were not the original intention. You know, the Dominion thing was not really the original intention, and I feel like I would have felt better about retconning and weaving it together if I'd seen Ewing put the ideas forth first, because there's a thing of like, it has his stamp of approval and it has his, I was the guy that built the platform, so when they told me I needed to put a structure on the platform, it was the structure I wanted to build there.
And I hear all of it because, you know, what I go back to Chris Claremont having the most unattractive public reaction to Mark Millar using Wolverine Enemy of the State. It's something we joke about because, like, as we're sitting here, I'm sending myself little notes like, put in pitch book, this is idea. And like, I'm trying not to be too obvious about it, but like, one of the things that happens is you talk to people about ideas you're excited about. And when Monsieur Claremont left the X books in 1992, 1993, he just started going around and being like, hey, you want to hear a story? And because he never thought he was coming back, you know, so many people thought that Bob Harris was the death of Marvel, and almost was. So, you know, we wind up in a position where people have shared their stories and then other people have concluded them. We've also talked extensively in the last couple of weeks about X-Men at 12, which was started as one thing and finished as another. It can be really tricky because I love seeing these things completed by Ewing, but I actually want to make a really bold statement. All of the work of this Magneto rests on us understanding the complexities that the Magneto journey has taken. If Xavier died, you know, there's that floating hands video. Are you telling me that all of this is because of an aging bald man in a wheelchair? Where is he? I can kill him right now. Apocalypse. there's a sort of sense of like, oh, Xavier, who cares? But you hear Magneto and you're like the man, the myth, the legend. And I feel like part of what we've gotten caught up here in this particular cycle of resurrecting Magneto is Ewing's part is amazing, but it feels for me like the Ewing framework is filling someone else's clock. And this clock was started by Morrison, which this issue beautifully, you never want to be like, that's derivative. You want to be like, this beautifully reflects a universe where somebody like Grant Morrison gave us such breathtaking art that people like Al Ewing would feel brave enough to create their art this way. And so I don't want to be like, oh, but speaking of Grant Morrison, copycat. But speaking of Grant Morrison, thank goodness for things like Grant Morrison losing his mind and botching the end of Green Lantern, or we wouldn't have such expressive art in comics in the last 5 years. Hey, buddy. Because me and Grant Morrison were friends on the astral plane. He knows what that means. So, I don't know. I did think parts of this verged on... What's the funny version of appropriative? Like the non-sinister version, like the version that has no stakes, the version where it's totally appropriative, like acceptable borrowing. Like I just don't know, but it did verge on using other people's work as a benchmark point.
I think before problematic comes troubling or worrisome.
And this isn't even troubling or worrisome.
Yeah, it's whatever the Muppet Babies version of troubling is.
I mean, Moore did it first. Morrison stole it from Moore. And Ewing, I feel like, is pulling from both of them. And that's why I brought up Promethea earlier. This really does feel in a lot of ways to me like Promethea. Storm starts going on the journey, and immediately we show up in this liminal space where we get these, enormous trappings of Marvel cosmology just sitting there represented for us. We've got the Living Tribunal, we've got Death, we've got the Wheel of Fortune, which is showing up in Immortal Thor. The Tower, they kind of explain in this book, but that's Enigma's crown on top of it. The Crystal Ball seems like it has Doctor Strange's dragon symbol on it.
Can you just imagine, like, looking at this page and just going, the boner I give myself in a good way? Like, I'm like Al Ewing living the dream.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, this man is like.
I mean, to have written as much as he has referencing this stuff, but also to have written Defenders Beyond, which really was kind of a Cliff's Notes kind of codex for what Marvel cosmology could look like.
A real Bayhive.
You're the worst. So, I was excited to see it. I was maybe less excited to see Tarn and to do this long drawn out hentai.
Tarn the Uncaring, who was created by whom?
Dang.
No.
He wasn't?
Zeb Wells, Hellions.
That's right. He comes in Hellions first.
Now think about that. Think about fucking, I am the very model of a terrible mutant man. Sort of, Tarn, who's like this kind of like faggy mutant monster.
Yeah.
And now, like, think about this Tarn.
Yeah.
I lost the humor.
That was it. And this is where I was really impressed with Luciano Vecchio's art, because we do see him doing, like, what if chibis were fuckable and weren't just like for stickers, but were for like actually following around? Sometimes that, like, I get that vibe. So when he's like, hey, here's just like Tarn anyway. And then he's like, hey, here's Tarn. And he's got like extra mouths. And then he's like, here's Tarn. And it's all mouths and tentacles. And there's lightning everywhere. I'm really impressed with what he did. But look at how much dialogue there is here. And I clipped one large panel to show him when he's looking really big compared to Storm, but like they just talk and talk and talk, and I don't think they say a ton. They set a really good vibe, and I love a vibe, but
I do sometimes get surprised in a good way, that Al Ewing gets away with as much dialogue on a page as a Brando Sando fan has about their favorite Brando Sando work. I got lost in this article about a person losing their mind over thoughts on a Mistborn movie. I don't understand how.
Was it me?
Passion is beautiful. The other thing that this issue had, in a good way, that other issues in the last couple of months around it don't have, is a real sense of, I don't fucking care. This book had a real sense of, I don't fucking care, in a way that we credited earlier to making us feel maybe like it's a little disconnected from the idea of Dominion, a little disconnected from what's going on around it, but in a way that maybe part of what made Tony Stark so cool was that he didn't want to play by what we had established as Batman rules or Superman rules or Spider-Man rules. This book kind of felt in that way like it was bucking against the solemn agreement of the current X titles to have a very somber tone. This didn't have that same somber tone. This had a sense of whimsy, a sense of magic, and a sense of interest in its own self-fulfillment, not in the fulfillment of the promise of a line. And I think that's something that we're missing from a lot of these books, a complete story at the end of 4 fucking issues.
I completely agree. And then I think, unfortunately, something that drags it down just a smidge, because what you said is so true, is that there are forced lines of, I'm really sad that Krakoa is happening. I'm on this insane acid trip. Yeah, I'm on this insane journey through, the afterlife, and I'm really upset because I know that Krakoa has fallen, which, has to be there because this has to be in continuity, and people are dumb and don't always remember why we're here. But because what you're saying is so true, whenever there is that, and that kind of is also what that first scene with Craig feels like. It's like that's supposed to be part of the world in which Krakoa has fallen, Storm is miserable, but we immediately dive into the rabbit hole, and then I don't care so much about Krakoa anymore. And I'm really doing a lot of the work to kind of connect this to that. We also bring in Storm's ancestor, which introduced in a Gambit retcon story by Chris Claremont.
I'm not frozen.
I know.
Literally.
I know.
Okay. I need to go back a minute. I'm going backwards through time. It's that Robin level of time machine here. Okay. Kudos to that bitch for rhyming DeLorean with anything.
Yeah.
And I am joyously shiggled at the idea that the joke we made when this show cared about Krakoa was, if they could make X-Men Legends stories matter, we would gobble them up. We would gobble them up like they're your milkshake. But the problem was that these stories refused to interact with things that were modern. It wasn't just that they were giving these writers the opportunity to write whatever they wanted. They were writing whatever they wanted in a way that felt devoid of the opportunity to connect. Nearly every story ended with, and that was when we had our minds wiped. And it was just dreadful.
Yep.
That Gambit mini could have easily been a 3-issue Legends arc. And here it is, affecting modern canon. Here it is, being part of this bigger picture where Storm just had a mini-series and she faced versions of herself and her own timeline. Al Ewing is better a company man than most, because he doesn't just play in the sandbox. He just makes your toys seem cooler. And when you go home, you are so fucking... Can you imagine Chris Claremont initially opening it up and being like, well, I don't care for those. And then 2 minutes later being like, no, I do think I should come back for episode 9. I do. That is JJ.
I do. I hope he liked it.
I hope he did too. What a fucking lollipop moment. This is beautiful.
I do think... I want to say Ashake, maybe Ashake, was a well-used character. Promethea, the other Prometheas coming.
And Salem the cat from the
Salem-
the TV show
Yes.
right there.
He's a very fancy boy. I'm very excited, and I had to put this in. I put this in specifically, this panel on the left, because it really felt like a Promethea thing, like Ashake saying, like, okay, I'm taking you on the journey now. Like, now I will walk you through the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. And Storm playing with the cat. It's just very cute. I put this other panel in specifically because it definitively states that all of the mutants that were in the waiting room waiting to be resurrected left. And we don't know. And then it goes into just, this is one that I'm like, I want to clip this, pin this, and speak about it on the show, because I will remember it really specifically, and I will remember if we get all the way to From the Ashes and nobody ever addresses this again. And then I will keep it in my back pocket for the next 2 decades, and constantly, whenever somebody goes, oh, that mutant was brought back, oh, that guy was brought back, I'll be like, right, but what about all the mutants that were in the waiting room that passed on to the next world? But Ashake specifically said that doesn't mean that they have moved on and can't be brought back. It just means something we can't say. This really, in a way that I really respect Ewing for finding the best, like, most erudite, most magical girl on a journey way of writing, was one of Marvel's, like, we need to be able to say we can bring people back whenever we want. So just if you can fit in some really abstract ideas about the afterlife and moving on from even the afterlife to a place you can't come back from, that will mean that some editor can write in Resurrection of Magneto #1 when they have this completely zany explanation for why a character came back from out of the fucking Death Skull.
It's something that I think we're really seeing become part of the meta discussion of where comics are.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of my Green Lantern read, and I'm in the middle of an issue where those of you who know this journey for me, you will understand what I'm about to tell you. Alan Scott and Hal Jordan are just getting drunk, running around with their power rings on, which is maybe like the most emotionally fulfilling thing you can possibly provide me. They want to do something nice for Doiby for the first anniversary of him and his intergalactic princess wife. And so they're going to teleport his car to him. But the car has become a criminal mastermind and is running a small mob because, as it turns out, Sinestro died and is now possessing the car. And when Sinestro comes back, he comes back super roided and is like, I guess the car made me more muscular. Good for me. And just runs with it. This is the issue I'm currently in the middle of. Guys, that's literally how they used to bring back people's like dynamic opposite. Like, that is how Magneto could have come back in reference to Xavier at some point. I think for all of the shit that I am giving this, part of what I'm giving it is it's overcomplicated. That's okay, because I know that when I get a game, like if Final Fantasy releases a game that I can beat in 20 hours, that's frustrating for $50. That's really frustrating.
Yeah, this does give you bang for the $4.99 you paid for it.
Readability, the relookability, the art is so multi-leveled.
Yeah. It is really not this issue. It is this issue situated in the rest of the Fall of House of X and the Rise of Powers of X. It is Ewing writing this and not being a headliner on the flagship send-off titles. It's Gillen pulling Ewing's ideas into Gillen's ideas in a way where Ewing doesn't start it off.
It's also Vecchio using somebody else's artistic style. Like, it is a maneuver that he is just capable of. I don't even know how to explain this. This is such an incredible stretch out of his ability. It is
I mean,
stunning.
his ability to do. I need to look up who wrote Defenders Beyond, but he really is aping.
Ewing.
No, the art.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. Vecchio is doing a really good job of aping that same style where they were really going throughout the cosmos.
Javier Rodriguez.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Vecchio is keeping up with how Javier Rodriguez did the style on Defenders Beyond. Anyway, we get Storm meeting the Phalanx Dominion. Okay, this gives us a more like vague references to stuff. We get this is Multiverse 5, Cosmos Stage 6.
This reminds me a lot of Twinks, I know.
Which?
I'm so upset with you.
You do.
Dear reader, if you are looking at this image and hearing Nico's words, I'm very sorry. I agree with him, but I'm sorry. He shouldn't have said it. He's right, but he shouldn't have said it, to quote Marge Simpson.
I'm just saying, if you run into a person at a gas station in Massachusetts and you can identify.
But yeah, we get Storm talking to...
Oh, Kevo just got the joke.
We get Storm talking to the Phalanx Dominion. That's great. Like I said, mentioning Multiverse 5, Cosmos Stage 6, the junction to everywhere. These things feel very like, I know nerds are going to be like, well, this is Multiverse 5, Cosmos Stage 6. We haven't moved to Multiverse 6, Cosmos Stage 1 yet. How many multiverses are there? Like, when do you go to another multiverse? When does the Cosmos Stage end? These are all questions that I don't care about, but I care about in that I feel like I know they're going to be referenced again, and I'd like to get that over with.
Buffest me ever, so like me at like 31 would beat me up so hard for being like, you're a shitty little canonista and you need to cram that. But like, I don't care. I'm so bored of the trappings. Just give me good stories. You have explored every iteration of these ideas inside and out, and then you come to a really cool one. Like, what if death no longer matters in comics? Because it doesn't. They had to come up with like but that Kevo, please extract that. That's the new RuPaul laughing at the end of the introduction. But that we are trying to come up with an absurd way to bring Magneto back. Guys, stop. We don't need a reason to bring Magneto back. If you want to re-release the song, just re-release the song. We all know how it goes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this all could have happened.
Tasty cake. Sorry.
This all could have happened without it being bringing Magneto back. This, because all the five are in the White Hot Room. Like, really, Destiny could have just said, "Hey, while we're here in the White Hot Room, you can bring back anybody because there's no rules here. Bring back Magneto because we're going to need him." And then Storm could have just gone on this journey because Storm should be
Metals, Phoenix. It sounds good.
Yeah, Storm could have just gone on this journey because Storm should be on this journey. I actually split this page into two so we could just get I think it does kind of split into two. We get the Beyonders here, who are, I guess they're linear, so you guys are lame. I don't... Go.
No, I mean, that's it.
I don't know what to say about this. I want it to be cool. I want to care. I want to think about it more, but I don't know. It's like,
I just, it's sort of like I brought up Lost earlier because I feel like in a lot of ways we can compare the end of Krakoa to the end of Lost. This idea of this island that travels through time that is so filled with such an incredible multitude of characters, and how the mythology of the island is almost as important as the characters themselves. One of the things that I've been really thinking about is how we were lucky enough to be at an NYCC panel, and a writer who had been I think he was an executive producer on the first season of Lost was like, yeah, no, people figured it out right away. It was purgatory. And we had 5 years of story, and we ran through it by episode 29, and that was it. We were out of stories forever. And so we had to just start adapting, and we just had to start kind of figuring out what the audience wouldn't guess, but still wanted. And they wound up
But you
running
don't
them.
stay.
Exactly. Now, this guy revealed it, like, I think during season 6. So, like, the show was
Yeah.
already filmed wrapping, and he had left the show with season 2 or 3.
I mean,
So, you know,
showrunners don't say that. They say it's a plan, and we've been doing it the whole time, and we knew everything.
so, you know, one of the things that happens is when the audience catches on to it, you see them adapting, you see them kind of trying to work around it. We as an audience had so many expectations for what the Beyonders were going to be revealed to be.
Yep.
And this sort of feels like you said, oh, what's my surprise birthday dessert going to be? And somebody was like, cake! Oh, they're people who wear big fancy suits and look like all of the Beyonders we've seen.
And not a woman among them.
Yeah, that's beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, and going with they are linear when, you know, prior to this, they kind of couldn't be by definition. Like they were
Beyond.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, now we've done this new stage, which is fine. Retconning is fine. But this did, you know, bringing the Beyonders in, I appreciated it again because it's a Ewing trademark. He's been into the Beyonders for a minute. That was a big part of Defenders Beyond. The biggest thing this reminded me of is that Omega as a character exists and could use a refreshing. He hasn't been used since like Jonathan Lethem did that Omega story. Remember that?
No. Oh, well, real quick. I just want to say a hearty and loving goodbye to my hat brother, the guy who knows more DD than I do. Tim, we can't wait to hear your thoughts on our next episode. And we should definitely schedule an episode for you to come on and bring your thoughts at the end of all of these arcs that we're going to discuss today.
Yes, please, Tim.
Left. But please go enjoy your game, and we will talk to you soon. When it's a super fan, you know, you kind of giggly about it. So, I really agree with what you're saying. I think one of the things that we had big hopes for was that I guess maybe Al Ewing would deliver the ball across the pitch or whatever on all. I wear baseball caps. I don't fucking know baseball. Ask me football questions. I've studied that one. So my dad likes the Giants. So, you know, the thing that I find myself really wondering about is how much that we thought that Al Ewing was going to deliver it all the way across all of the goal lines. And I feel like we had really big thoughts about the Beyonders in general, not just because of Defenders Beyond, but wasn't there also Avengers Beyond? And the Bruins are hockey. The Bruins are hockey. Tori laughs at me.
Yeah.
She's laughing with you.
No, she's laughing at me, and she should. She should absolutely laugh at me. She's the best. I'm telling you, it's the best hat in the world, right? So, anyway, you know, the thing that I think is that when we see something like the Beyonders, we have really big thoughts about the bigness of Marvel. I'm so glad that mutants have reached bigness, but did mutants reach bigness at the cost of things like the Beyonders having to be a little bit more tame?
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair question. This is basically where my Resurrection of Magneto slides wrap up, because I didn't really want to give away the final moments. I want people to have their reaction to them in the book. I don't think we really do much after this. We really just say kind of like, okay, now we're hooking into the next issue. We know Magneto is getting resurrected, and whatever we see of him before that happens is just kind of fluff.
And I think that's actually the fault of Marvel not being willing to lean into that multiversity quite yet. They want it on the table, but they're not willing to reach for it. There is a little bit of, you know, who shot first here about bringing back Magneto, and so much of the solicitation is maybe he's evil, maybe not. And like, I purposely used an insane Muppet voice because that is the level of that they're kind of throwing at this, because at the same time, they're touting Magneto's helmet as on the person in the wheelchair in the post-Krakoan era X-Men images. We know that Magneto leads them during the X-Men 97 crew. It just feels like we're not moving toward an era where Magneto is the big bad. All things considered, I would also just caution Marvel that whatever side of any argument they may choose to be on, perhaps this moment isn't the moment that Marvel, a company founded by a bunch of nice Jewish boys, chooses to make a Jewish terrorist supervillain a genocidal maniac. I would beg Marvel to consider these choices. I'm not even Melissa Barrera, and I would beg Marvel to consider these choices.
I think that is some very good begging you've done here.
It's bacon. So I wonder if bacon strips are kosher. So because there's no way they have real bacon in them. All right, talk to me. What are your wrap-up thoughts on Magneto's resurrection in general? I think my main thing is it feels like there's a few too many forces at work here, but you know, the same way we decided that gravity isn't a force, thanks Einstein, you know, we can make some decisions about what is and isn't necessary. I think maybe this will be a book that after it's all done, the things that don't really get a follow-up, we're not going to mind so much are here because we're not going to think too much about them when we read the book.
I think, yes, I think that's exactly right. Except for I still will think about them because I'm a crazy person. But I think...
You're the best kind of crazy.
Let's not go overboard here.
Well, you're not like publicist crazy.
I'm like your zany aunt crazy.
Hypersexual blackjack dealer crazy.
I like that. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it on that. This is, to me, is not Resurrection of Magneto. This is the miseducation of Storm. This is Storm gets her groove back. Storm goes on,
now the joy of my world lies in Lensherr. Oh my God.
I would say lies in Judgment because that's where she's like hanging out. This is a Storm book. And the Resurrection of Magneto really could have happened somewhere else. I would have loved for this to be a bigger pillar of the end of this era. Because I think Ewing deserves that.
Yeah, you know, Al Ewing definitely feels like a guy who was, you guys can point to Dan Slott. He's the hit. It's fine. Yep, Spider-Verse, totally. Dan Slott, cutting edge. When Dan Slott is... I mean this. Dan Slott is a Stan Lee. Al Ewing is a little bit more of a Jack Kirby. He's a little bit more of a Steve Ditko. He's a little bit more of like a, let's get out there with the big ideas. And, you know, I think for a guy like Al Ewing, who has paid his dues as the number 2 guy on so many titles over the last couple of years, it's really great to see him have his time with Storm. It is complicated, though, because... we are going to walk away from this era with Al Ewing being the defining voice on Storm for a generation. Al Ewing is not Roxane Gay. And that's tough for me. So, like, you know, that we're talking about a white man who is queer, but I'm sorry, queerness isn't an exception to making you better at writing women. It just means that you also enjoy somebody of the same gender.
The only thing I'll say is Ewing seems to have taken a lot of encouragement from communities of color and women who really like what he's writing, which, bless.
Oh my God, that moment really validated my entire 2020. I can't even talk about it.
So I think he is the best ally, and I don't blame anybody for taking the job they're offered. I think... that said, Marvel's really got to start committing harder to people of color and women of color, and, you know, people who are non-binary. Just, we need to keep upping the ante and not alienating writers who are of those experiences. Ewing is definitely a great exception to the rule, but we can't keep relying on those.
I think part of what happens is that's how we wind up with, and again, I am not coming for my queer brothers. I am so proud to be of a generation that is part of the same inspirations and part of the same output as guys like Steve Fox and Steve Orlando. But I don't know that they should be currently the people writing Rachel and Scarlet Witch. Shouldn't powerful women be writing those characters? And, not that I'm trying to keep track, but I do feel like Marvel is maybe losing their grip on strong women voices in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Torunn Grunbeck is a goddess. I mean, really, like so few people can write bloody murder the way Torunn Grunbeck can, but you can't stake all of it on Torunn Grunbeck's back. That's not fair, even if she is Norse.
Yep. We haven't seen Leah Williams in forever. We haven't really seen Teenie Howard.
And let's not even get started on the non-binary creators.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a situation I don't see getting much better anytime soon, but I would like to, and I would love to know what we as consumers and critics and commentators can do to help support. In the meantime, this book happened.
Can I tell you why I liked it?
Yeah, so we're talking about Magneto, the series written by JM DeMatteis. Thank you, Todd Knock on art. Please do tell me why you liked it.
Fuck your chicken strips.
Elaborate on that.
Please.
I actually just don't care what people like and don't like. I love this. This is my shit. I love reading people going back to the 1970s and 80s on X-Men, especially when they're wrong. And can I tell you why, especially when they're wrong?
Wait.
Because
I will only... You go first, and then I'll say my thing. Not as important. Go first.
I love when they're wrong. I love when people go back to the 70s and 80s and get the stuff that I feel one way, a little bit the different way. Can I tell you why? Because I hated half of the 70s and 80s. Hated it. It was so bad. It was awful. But you know why I loved it? Because it was my dad's comics. This is one of the guys who wrote my dad's comics. But Todd Knock is, in my opinion, a master of form, a king of penciling. Todd Knock understands how to make a panel look cool. He understands dynamic imagery. This was, for me, one of those guilty pleasures, like I made you read all of that X-Men First Class, like I make you read all those Origins books. No, this is my going to see improv. This is my still enjoying Ani DeFranco pre-2003. This is my still wanting to stay up late and watch bad unsolved mysteries. No. This is the tastiest guilty pleasure. I'm not encouraging everybody to still go out and listen to, canceled artists. None of that. Right? No one has to listen to R. Kelly. But this is nobody here's canceled. It's just an era that we've kind of canceled and a format that we've kind of canceled. And I don't think it was ever offensive. I think we just thought it was dumb. And I'm not here to put up with other people thinking stuff I love is dumb anymore. Because you know what? I'm going to say it. I think PUBG is dumb as shit. And I let the whole world, 7 million people play that a day. You can let me have 4 dumb issues of 1980s Magneto mediocrity, and you can just let me have it and be happy. I don't feel the same way about Daredevil Black Armor at all. So,
yeah, but what do you got?
This is fuck your chicken strips. These are my chicken strips. Like, I'm saying it as you.
Oh, okay, got it.
That's what it is.
Oh, yeah, no, fuck your chicken strips.
No,
my chicken
fuck
strips.
your chicken strips because these chicken strips are mine.
I can't argue with any of that. Ultimately, what it comes down to is I just don't love DeMatteis' writing. And I didn't super enjoy following it for 4 issues. I really felt like the minute Magneto said end program, having seen one cover of this series, I knew everything that was going to happen from here on out, and I was 100% correct.
Well, congratulations. That's just more check marks in your awesomeness column.
Truly, I am a prophet. I'm a gift. I love writing like this where, Scarlet Witch is fighting magic and she says, "You like to play with magic, Witch? Well, I've got news for you. Magic is my name." Which is the worst possible way you could send that message across as a writer. Like, no.
Mal means bad.
In Latin.
Or Spanish. There's some real clunky writing in this. I capped these two panels, one to mock the writing there, but two, Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, late December, a few years ago. I don't appreciate that. I don't like that.
Listen, we are going to get into some heady discussions.
I know.
About the
years ago.
About how every 5 years in real world time is 1 year in Marvel time, which means if they say the book took place 30 years ago in real world time, it took place 6 years ago Marvel time, which means that characters can do anything that they could have done 6 years ago, even though we're saying it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's still... So every 5 years is a year.
Yep.
It's been 60 years.
Which is how Franklin is like 12 years old, because it's
right. That means it's been 12 years.
I'm sorry, 12 years old. Thank you. He's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's still yeah. I like that approximate. I would still punch that up a little because Franklin is like 14 in X4.
Okay.
So I do think like that's the thing. It's like I think Cyclops is over 30 for sure.
Man, I just want Cyclops to be 43 so that he can be like a hot daddy. In my mind, Cyclops is in fact like in his 40s, and I think the 5-year rule is still not quite enough. Yeah.
But I can't do this thing. Well, like Peter is in his 30s, and Peter has never. They've tried to make him so in his 20s. It's just exhausting. Anyway, so I don't love a few years ago for this because this is the 80s. I mean, this is still 8 years ago.
They tried to.
What?
Years ago, they tried to.
Oh my God, you are killing me today. I know. This like just incredibly pathological Magneto, like the pathos of all of this, where he's just so angsty, all the suffering. Yes, I've certainly caused my share. And then he like can't stop screaming at Rain.
These 10,000 Maniacs lyrics are so good.
Exactly. Why did you do these crimes, Magneto? Because the night belongs to lovers.
Tori,
you're being serious for way too long.
Tori, all I'm saying is you should have been. That was indiscreet, and your dad's just really tall and really nice to me. So,
two of his favorite things.
Yeah.
The other thing I do want to say is that this book gets Magneto's body type right. One of the things that we saw happen is the Jim Lee-ification of Magneto.
Yeah.
We saw him get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I love me a trend out daddy.
Yeah.
But
that's just not quite Erik or Max.
Especially not Max when he was leading the new X-Men as the New Mutants in the mid-'80s. One of the things that mid-'80s Magneto had going for him was a resistance to like opulence. I feel like we saw a Magneto that thought that almost like a priest, like divorcing himself of worldly goods would make him stronger. And so seeing a slimmer Magneto just sort of reflects the idea of the era really carefully.
Agree. So we've established this. It's Magneto trying to train these. We know this is a period in which Magneto's trying to take care of these kids. He's not doing the best job. He is wrestling with the fact that he is Magneto. Rain here is saying to him, Rain with Norman Osborn's haircut for some reason.
I tell you, now all I want is the Wolf Goblin, and I'm dead.
Yeah, 100%. Magneto's flashing back to himself as a boy at Auschwitz.
I can't tell you the amount of times that I saw this panel and was like, Xavier? No. Xavier? No. That just looks like Xavier.
I know.
I'm just so happy the number isn't 24601.
Oh, one! Right?
Artists love to do stuff like that, and that would be so inappropriate here. As it is, it shouldn't start with 240.
I agree.
I would just point out, because brilliant, famous animator Eric Stefani was a part of a show that made little in-jokes like that very cool, McBain.
McBain!
And then all of a sudden, this gorgeous woman of color shows up in an orange Magneto outfit, cinched for the belted for the gods.
Yeah.
She is very
looking that orange.
I think you really would. I think you could boy drag this look to hell. She's very mad and yet kind of ecstatic about anger. So, immediately we know that it's rage powers. She
might be related to you.
Just powers of constant annoyance. She kidnaps Magneto, brings him to the Sisterhood of Evil Mutants, which we've already had before, led by a Madeline Pryor psychic echo in the Fraction San Francisco days,
where every cover showed every single woman experiencing orgasmic joy at being under a title card.
Do not let Greg Land draw your covers, people. These women are never explained.
I agree. I think it's part of the nature of trying to forge together classic stories with characters.
Yeah. Yeah. So these characters are really interesting. They look kind of like Reavers. There's one who has metal wings, so there kind of is a reference to Angel. There's a redhead, so we get some Jean Grey vibes, except the bottom half of her body is like a spider. They're all cyborgs. One of them looks like a Wheeler from Return to Oz. But she has a harpoon for an arm. How does she eat food?
All of the members of the Burger King Kids Club.
I completely agree. They're here to worship Magneto. This girl says that Magneto is her father. And of course, he is not her father. This was another thing where I was like, immediately, no, he is not her father. She is going to say that because his influence made her, she considers him her father. Which is exactly what happens. Her powers are rage-based, and Magneto ignited them. He did help her overcome her abusive father, but then she has worshipped him sycophantically. I loved that. The thing that DeMatteis does really well is this panel that I have clipped right here, where the New Mutants are just kids running on to Doug as a plane. And meanwhile, the two that can't go, to Warlock as a plane, the two that can't go, Doug and Magic, have just this tender moment of, I'll stay with you, kiddo. He nails that. He definitely gets the New Mutants, and I love that. That's really fun. Ultimately, they save the day. Magneto is made to be his most rageful self, realizes that he can't be that person, fights back against Ire, this rage-based Magneto person, puts her in a coma, and then we just get this, in case anybody would like to use this material later, here she is in a stasis chamber, and he says he will free Elena Perez. That is this character that thinks of Magneto as her father, though she has never met him. And in the end, Magneto hugs Rain. You muted.
Because I think what we really needed was something to remind us that Magneto is kind of a big softie right now. So much of what Magneto has been through has been this like massive shift, reality stuff, fighting gods, fighting super gods, fighting the super god weapon of a super god. And we've ultimately sort of lost that Magneto's just a guy. He's still just a dad. And if you needed to remind us that Magneto was that kind of person, even if nobody picked this miniseries up, it being on the shelf, it being a trade, it being something that you saw at your LCS and then will see in the Magneto read list on Marvel Unlimited, it creates a moment in continuity that just sort of softens the character as we go into this very big, very thought out resurrection that is more cog and piece than it is character.
I more or less agree. I wish there were some easier way to say, like, hey, new person reading, I know you might not want to go back and read all of the years in which Magneto runs the school and the New Mutants are there. If you want to see kind of what everybody was going through, here's 4 issues that illustrate that really well. I just don't know that that's a big product or that's something people are clamoring for. This was fine. I hope somebody does fall in love with Elena Perez and use her. Let Nico do it. Completely agree. And I hope Rain...
She's gay.
She's definitely gay. I hope Rain and Magneto hug again.
You know, I hope that Rain has anything good happen to her because it's been a lot of time where Rain has been either helping other people have good things happen to them or been the subject of incredibly sad stories. And it would be a nice change of pace for Rain.
Probably somebody should mention the fact that her mother is now a murderous robot who wants to kill her.
No. I think for Rain's sake, we're going to just pretend that Moira died in Operation Zero Tolerance or Maximum Security or Dream's End. She died in Dream's End. I knew it was an underwhelming 90s crossover. Y'all can't stop me.
Nailed it.
Also, I just need you to hear this. I watched Trader Season 1. We just finished. Reza from Shaws of Sunset. Exactly Arturo.
Duly noted. I will start watching as soon as possible.
And what a beautiful thing to have conjured up. Okay. Speaking of things I wish to conjure. Magneto C+, but A+ for love. Do you have final thoughts?
Yeah, I think C, that's it. Bring back free Elena Perez from the tube.
Okay, speaking of freeing people from the tube, incredible, brilliant women. It's hard because, first of all, bring Tori in. For the love of Christ, bring Tori in. It's hard for me because so many people that I love are people who look to me for things and advice and opinions. And while I do feel that is a little bit what happened with Tori, what more happened is Tori came to me and said, listen, I'm going to read Daredevil from the beginning.
I thought you'd be happy.
Yeah, you do it again too. And
I mean, I said, I'm going to send you all my commentary. Then you said, well, I might as well read along.
So what I need to say then is when Tim Burnham, Daredevil fucking famed superfan Tim Burnham, posts in our chat, wait,
oh my God,
this show is doing a Daredevil episode and Tori, you're not on it. There's just
so great.
There's not a lot of room for women in comics commentary, and that our show is someplace people expect it. And it's somebody who literally came to me and was like, listen, I'm going to be a Daredevil fan. You can either be along for the ride or you can foggy your way out of here. It's just amazing. So Tori, tell us about you. Where can we find you and what you're here to talk about?
Oh, you can find me sitting as far away from the spider that just dropped down from the ceiling onto my microphone. This is great. I had an intro planned out. Excuse me one second. It's Pete. It's
You're
Pete. He's
Spider
here.
Tori.
Yeah. If it could
Oil
not.
spill.
Anyway. Well, forgive me, Father Matt, for I have sinned. It's been 4 months since we've talked Daredevil. I'm Tori Sheehan. You can find me on the socials at SM Tori. It's Tori with an I. I went through a fun couple of days.
Lady,
get in on this because I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do black armor. What is that? He's like, oh, it's from Fall from Grace, and I was like, what is that? And then I read it. And then I read the rest of this. It's been fun.
Okay, so then I want to start with, we're reading Daredevil 1 through 5, Gang War 1 through 2, Daredevil Gang War 1 through 2, right? And
Yes.
Daredevil Black Armor 1 through 3. What is your pick? Mine is Daredevil Gang War 1 through 2, which I think is like, not like the saving grace, because like I don't think anything here is below like a B minus. Really, you know, reasonably speaking, Black Armor clunks like fuck, but if you lived through it, I came of age. I've talked extensively on a number of these podcasts about how like 1994 to 1998 is a pretty significant time in my development, and that's this Daredevil. I had this action figure, so the lowest that clunks is a B minus, but my A is Gang War, which really is a treasure to read. How about you guys? What's your standout? Daredevil, which I'm calling Daredevil 7 Deadly Sins to give it a subtitle, Daredevil Gang War, or Daredevil Black Armor?
Well, I know that for me, I've been enjoying the gang war. I love getting Elektra running her own title. I think it's so much fun. And I like the little flashbacks that we get and a little more time in her head. And I'm intrigued by Black Armor, very intrigued, but I'm also deeply confused about the timeline. So it gets docked points on that one. It gets docked a lot of points. And then I
just real quick, for those of you who don't know, for a brief period of time when Doc Ock was taken off the board, docked a lot of points with Spider-Man. Fuck me.
He's great. That's great. That's great. That's great. It's just great. And the main line is so it's turning into exactly what I thought it was, and I'm interested to see if it's going to keep going down the road of getting closer and closer to what I want, which is a giant second act in this trio that could be called like Daredevil Inferno. So
I think I'm giving it to Daredevil. It's sort of what Tori said. I really want to give it to Gang War, but I'm upset that it is a one-off, that it's a tie-in title. I really think Elektra should have gotten her own title a while back. I remember back when Devil's Reign was finishing, Nico and I speculated that the title that would come out would be Daredevils.
Oh my God, why would they do this to us?
And I really thought,
make you buy 2 books.
Well, I thought at the time they just did Daredevil and we only bought 1 book. If they had done Daredevils for the 14 issues to end the Red Fist saga and then had done 2 books out the gate for this, I probably would have given Elektra Daredevil and then given Matt Murdock Daredevil. I would have called it Matt Murdock Daredevil or something. But anyway, setting that aside, this was a slow burn for 3 issues of being like, I think this is a bit of a miss off of the heels of Zdarsky. I don't think this does what I need it to do. And then when I really got what the demons were, and there are still some big things where I'm just like, I would not have done it this way if this is where we were going. But I am interested to see where Matt can go from here. I'm really excited to read this book. I kind of, for as much as I do really enjoy the experience of reading Elektra's Daredevil, I'm just sort of, because I know it's ending, I get a little...
You can't get attached.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is that I don't know that it's ending, but I do not think that this will be the run that continues. Even if Saladin Ahmed continues, I don't think it's going to be these threads. I sort of think the 7 Deadly Sins thing is going to end somewhere between 12 and 14.
Yeah.
And even if we see an incredible continuation, Although I do think it's going to be a return to a classic host. I do think we're going to see a Jon Stewart situation. I'm hoping for Andesenti. I don't want to put too much on it, but I'm hoping that at the end of 12 issues, we get like 25 solid issues out of Andesenti featuring 2 Daredevils. But, let's not pray for the golden age of Daredevil, shall we? Okay. I'll settle for this incredible Black Armor age. Do we want to hop in and do we want to start talking about Daredevil #1?
Sure.
Because I started at #1.
Yeah, I mean, I reread it too because we had talked about it previously, and I had read 1 and 2 before, and then I just got really busy and didn't for a while, so I caught up with all 5.
I want to mention that I also worked on practicing opening my jaw large enough to fit Elektra inside it.
Don't we all wish we could?
Prayers to Cooter for getting to draw what so many of us have only imagined.
Yeah, when last we spoke on Daredevil 1, I was super amped about it. You guys were a little less so, because I believed in a way that Matt doesn't believe in himself, but I believed in the fact that we were going to go somewhere larger than this. But I actually, I think I preferred the promise of #1 to some of the later issues.
I'll be honest, issue 5 is going to go down in history as something a little bit complicated for me. I think about classic one-off issue, and I think that the Exiles Nuff Said stands out. The Exiles Deli issue stands out. I think that there are some really cool Iron Fist issues that stand out. What all of them had was a sense of humor, right? But there was always this overwhelming seriousness. When we get to talking about issue #5, I just feel like the Axis style polarity is switched there a little bit. And we have maybe a little too funny She-Hulk unstoppably eating. Feels perhaps like it was designed for a sect of Pornhub a little bit more than it was designed for a sect of Daredevil. You know what I mean?
We can get into it later, but I actually have a slightly different read that still isn't exciting for me.
Ooh.
And I have a different read that I thought it was great, so I'm excited.
All right. I didn't rate it all.
Well, but because we had talked about issue 1 and about all these things that we're setting up, and oh my gosh, we get rid of the amnesia really quickly, and I think I'm more okay with that now. I think the time that we get with Elektra is important in the first one. It's a shame we don't have as much of her moving forward
at all ever again. Oh, okay.
But she's in her own title, so she'll come back around. He's beating up the heat. She's beating up the heat at different points. It's all fine. But I think the second one not having a 7 deadly sin in it is great. It made it so that the double punch of 4 and 5 being back to back is unfortunate because it does not give as much time to them. Ben Ulrich gets more time than not as much time as Elektra gotten it, and Jen gets very little time where we're like, oh shit, this is a problem.
So I just want to conjure up Sex in the City for a minute. There are very few.
Don't you always?
Don't I always?
Who doesn't?
There are very few sexy priests.
That's a lie.
But
in real life,
the Catholic Church has paid trillions of dollars to cover up sex. Wait, no, that's a different.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I really do love about this is that they're not hiding that Matt is still Matt. Part of what doesn't work so often for these illusions is this idea that, but no one would ever know. No, this looks like Matt Murdock. And I think that really works for the story. And so much of the imagery throughout this series, relies on the classic ideas, but isn't forcing the artistry into certain molds. I think that the use of splash pages in this is very contemporary, but at times perhaps maybe a little more than Daredevil uses them in this way. A Daredevil splash page is almost always used to explore the idea of the city and Daredevil's place in it as a protector, as something so small who plays such a big role cast against the landscape. So many of these felt like they were trying to convince the reader that this is all the stuff that's come before. And I wonder how much of this is being used as like a jump on run. And then, oh, look, it's Catholic. There's priesthood. I don't know. But I do think that this first issue sets up so many important threads that are going to be pulled on for the rest of the series. I wonder how many of them we haven't seen yet. I wonder how many subtle little things that we're going to catch when we read the final issue of Ahmed and Cooter's run. The same way I feel like I really loved 1 after reading 5. I have a better idea of what we're doing here. The humor shines through a little bit better, but unfortunately, what was made much worse, Kevo, if you would move to the next slide for me, the hideousness of this first issue is never captured on again.
I know. It's a shame.
That fucking thing, that thing in that middle panel, if I was going to be like, yeah, no, that weird, hideous demon, I'm sexually obsessed with him. That's it. Yep. And like, I'm so bummed out that it seems like Cooter was given less time to draw many of these issues than he was given for issue 1. However, we're going to get to what I think is the fill-in of 2023. Although I guess now it came out in 2024. Daredevil number 4's fill-in art is some of the best shit I've ever seen in my life. Wow. Talk about a seamless fill-in. But how did you guys feel about some of the body horror of issue 1 that kind of doesn't even show up again in the gluttony issue?
It's interesting you put it that way. I got where you were coming from. I felt the same way until we met Envy. Then I sort of realized that each one is a vibe. And this one being Sloth is just kind of like, even the long fingernails and toes to me is like, he's too lazy to cut them. The horns are long because he's too lazy to trim them. He's just the beard is long because, all he wants, just chill, just don't move. And Envy, I thought Envy was greed until it was named because Erik was being so greedy about the success of the Bugle. But what it really was that he was envying the Daredevil scoop site for always beating him. I think it was a bit of a miss with Gluttony for sure, except for the fact that we get a version of we get the mukbang horror. We get, the overeating horror rather than the creature itself being a corpulent mess, which we've seen a lot. Like anytime Gluttony.
Oh, mukbang, me at melting pot. Got it.
Correct. Yes. You and I bring you muffins.
Guys, I feel fucking awful, but sometimes TK will make me like a dozen muffins and I'll eat 7 the first day.
I've never seen these muffins.
That's problem.
I mean, if you've never seen a grown man just unhinge his jaw Kirby style,
Kevin, would you zoom in on that third image there for us?
Oh, there you go.
Me.
Yeah.
With the
right. So, there's some crossover with all of these characters. But yeah, I was bummed because this guy really freaked me out in the first issue, and Envy and Gluttony don't hit the same way, but Envy has a real style to her that kind of sets in when you realize what's going on. And then Gluttony, it's not so much about the entity itself, which I can understand being a bit of a letdown. It's about the creeping understanding that this moment with Jen, which we're kind of excited about, 2 friends, 2 lawyers, 2 superheroes. We just saw them fucking in the MCU. They're finally together. Oh man, they're having a nice meal. Matt's really, they're having a lot of, this is a disgusting amount of food. And the moment hits really good where you're, and then, you know, she fights Mr. Hyde to go get dessert. So it
Mr.
does like
Hyde having the busiest.
this is the biggest week. It's the biggest week of his life.
I actually think the reason why we got Gluttony through Jen is that my like number, like I think it was Jen, so that we could get that lovely moment where we start to think like, oh, maybe the illusion is like starting to drift for maybe people outside the New York
failing.
Like there's only a bubble around New York, like Angel doesn't know that Dawn is real kind of bubble. And I think so there's that little moment, and then I think the other moment is we never know how long these spirits, demons, sins have been on these people. Outside of Elektra, where we know it was basically like an hour later, she's inside his room. Like, we don't know how long they've been sitting with these. For Ben Ulrich, it feels like maybe it's been a couple of weeks. How long has this been sitting with Jen? The idea that Matt could run into Gluttony weeks, months after they've been having this in them, like constantly eating, then he would notice. We would notice that, like, this is somebody who does not look like how they normally do. But Jen will always look like that. She has the metabolism to keep it up. So you don't know that she's carrying this.
I love
Still
that.
don't like it, though.
No, because I feel like this idea of like secret passengers, now that it's been applied twice to dynamic women in the Marvel universe, and let's be honest, it's not like anybody's like, wow, Ben Urich, who should play him? The Rock. Everybody's like, who should play Ben Urich? Is there a trans Rick Moranis? Like, it's a very soft presenting character that people would say insensitive things about, and I just really felt like now I really want Rick Moranis to play Ben Urich so bad I can't even talk about it. But part of why I actually do want to discuss sort of a trans identity in this book. Unfortunately, there is nobody on this panel that can speak to the trans identity, but something that is so important to this idea of Daredevil is he feels like he's trapped in a body that isn't his. He feels like he is someone who belongs in this life. There are parts of it that are for him, but at the end of the day, the skin he's wrapped in is wrong. And I think that it's trying to explore something that many of us feel like we have an identification with, but we're so far removed from. And I think it would be something that would be really interesting to hear a trans person's perspective on this story, because I think it speaks to the idea of what we're expected to be and the skin we're in versus the skin we would choose for ourselves if it wasn't the societal expectation that put us in this role.
But do you think that the societal expectation is him in the suit, or is it that the life he has to in the collar, which is the life he was put here to lead by this god creature that gave him the second chance?
Well, I mean, Jack wanted him in the collar.
Well, yeah. Also,
and Maggie's a damn nun.
I mean, it's weird. It's the life that it was the gift he was given. I don't think it was put on him as another duty. I think it was his secret wish, and I think it was incorrect. I think he thought that this would be the right thing for him, and so it's kind of what he indicated to God that he wanted. And this is something I'm really interested in. This is something that would be really interesting to write, because we got Goldie as an angel of God, and Goldie didn't always seem to be doing the right thing. Right. So
Great callback.
Is it that God is very fallible? Is it that, like, whoever Goldie represented is, a good version, a heavenly version, a celestial version of the beast of the hand, and is equally as fallible and easy to foil if you want to? Or was it Matt's wish, and Matt's wish was actually not what he really wanted. He just didn't know because it was something he assumed. You know, my father always wanted me to go into the priesthood. My mother became a nun. This is what I should be doing, but I can't do it because I'm Matt. You know, I'm Daredevil. I'm a lawyer. I can't do these things. And so he thinks this is what I should want. God gives it to him. And now experiencing it, he comes to understand in no way is this right for me.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, is it the gift? Is the gift the life that you wanted, or is the gift the lesson you learn from living that life?
Yep. And what role did the God play in it? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to, no. What you're saying is important. What I was going to say is the gift that Aaron Cooter isn't afraid to draw a bulge.
Well and true.
Can they?
But a very tasteful one. There's no hog happening, but realistically, it's there.
The thing that I think is so important is that like Matt Murdock is the absolute best definition of a hero is a hero defined by what they do and how they're portrayed, not by their size or how much space they take up on the panel. I think in general, this iteration of Matt Murdock is a little slimmed down from his like hulking craziest, which Tori, I will never forget the first time you saw Scotty McDaniel's interpretation of Daredevil and you were just like, what is wrong? Why is Hulk wearing Daredevil costume? Send help. And, I think that's really true. I think there's something so sexy about this iteration of Daredevil, especially where the shadows are placed, where the bulges are. I think that we are not hyper exaggerating Daredevil's musculature, that we're not hyper exaggerating Daredevil's entire body, that his shoulders don't come out all the way across the panel. This is showing us a version of Daredevil, I think, that's more meant to be a man than a superhero. And that's making this whole 7 Deadly Sins story a little bit easier to deal with.
Yeah, I definitely think that I'll be interested to see who they choose for the rest of them, because we've got some great ones coming up. We've got greed, we've got lust, we've got pride, we've got wrath, that's 4, we've had 3. Great. Good job, self. To waste sloth on Elektra is interesting.
I wonder if it's Natasha for lust.
Blah.
As a human,
it's a comment against her. It's a comment against going back to that well.
Listen,
you will be happy to know, Tori, that Natasha appears to be in a throuple with Yelena Belova and Bucky, the Winter Soldier, in the pages
in a book where all they want to do is fight Kingpin. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've read that somewhere else. Okay.
Oh, it's the best. I was not going to read it, but TK was like, "No, read it. It's good." And I was like, because I think that bar none, Natasha is the sexiest woman in the entire Marvel universe.
Sure.
Nobody comes close.
Well, she's right there.
So many other people are so many other things, but if you're asking me what she is the best at, she is the best at sexiness. I do want to say, if someone is the best at anything, Aaron Cooter's Daredevil #2 is the best at really doing an incredible simulation of Joe Quesada's Daredevil back in the pages of Kevin Smith Daredevil Volume 2, 1-8. Holy shit. I would have thought this was from Joe Quesada's Daredevil. Oh my God. And if there weren't images for me to point at, oh my God, look at and it's actually not like, it's not icky aping. It's really beautiful after tribute. If you look at the incredible illustrious color work here, this color work shows a reflection of the color work that came in the Mark Waid Daredevil, where we saw the use of pastel light and dark to find Daredevil's good and evil, as opposed to the simplicity of white and black of the Frank Miller era, which, walk so we could run. Nobody's coming for anybody. And of course, everybody knows Ann Nesenti is a master jogger, right? But all of the symmetry here, the use of the radiation here is really specific to the work that, not just Joe Quesada, because that would be an oversimplification, but really a lot of this inking work really reflects the clever work of Jimmy Palmiotti. And later on, we would see a lot of the Malieve symmetry in a panel, kind of push away from the Miller Klaus Janson symmetry with the long panel on the right and everything to the left lower than it, we start to see a lot of this move toward the middle and then in the classic S snake. Now, I don't think we quite hit the classic S snake anywhere here, because instead of starting our dialogue in the upper right corner, we're starting our dialogue in the upper left corner. But I do think that we're really starting to see Cooter take shape here as a person designing his own version of the Daredevil vision. Of course, that also goes to the colorist and that also goes to the letterer. But this for me really is a high point, and that's why I chose these 3 pages. I feel like we're starting to get a storytelling point, a storytelling perspective and point of view here.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I think it's still taking shape for me. And unfortunately, it happening, the fact that they even referenced the heat, part of me is like, well, now it's gang war. Why aren't they in gang war? But I'm also glad that they're not. But Elektra is. This is just a really inopportune time for this book to exist. And it takes me back to the X-Men thing of like, Marvel is not prepared to deal with the continuity ramifications of all the stuff that they're doing and how it would affect their characters. The idea that Daredevil wouldn't be fully ensconced in gang war is insane to me. And the fact that gang war is this far into it and it hasn't really come up is weird. But that would be a really weird tangent to go on for Daredevil. So I sort of don't know where they're trying to situate Daredevil in the greater Marvel universe right now. I know they're doing some really interesting stuff with his faith and representations of his faith as challenges to him. I just don't know what that means for Daredevil as a character, as an emblematic part of the Marvel universe going forward.
I think one of the things that keeps him out of being in gang wars is the fact that, as we saw, if he gets too wrapped up in saving the day, he gets called back home.
Yeah, the kids get shit canned.
And I don't think you get to do that inside of being part of gang war.
Right.
But I agree. He would, if he heard this was going down, we would see him struggling about not being able to go. Not being able to party.
Well, and I think that's even sort of what we see over and over again in that first issue. He's like, oh, I want to beat people up, I guess, children. And obviously, he is not Marilyn Poppins about the children. But, okay, let's talk about literally the fill-in art issue of the year. Oh my God. If you're gonna bring back Bullseye and only one Bullseye instead of tons of Bullseyes, yikes. Wow, he's nuts. I love it. I am so happy. Listen, Bullseye is so central to the idea of who Daredevil is, because Kingpin can fight. Kingpin is a big man and Kingpin knows how to throw down. But Kingpin isn't agile. Kingpin doesn't bounce off of walls. Kingpin can't kill you from 70 yards away. Bullseye can kill you from 700 yards away, but he's the dumbest man alive. No, I'm serious. Those of you who have not read all of Bullseye, listen. He's the dumbest man alive. And so anytime you read a Bullseye story and you're like, no one would be that stupid, listen.
The only reason that I want to caveat that is because I just had to read Fall from Grace, and John Garrett is not worth our time in any sense of the word. But outside of that, you're not wrong.
No, Bullseye is the dumbest man alive. He is so good at what he does. He's a master assassin. But if you try to have a conversation with him, it's sort of like chewing on metal. And it's horrible. he is such a great villain for Daredevil because Daredevil is such an incredibly cerebral character. Daredevil wants to engage. He wants to talk with you. He wants to have that sort of symbiotic relationship. And the thing he just can't get from Bullseye is a fucking answer. And that he is forced to deal with. He is the dumbest boy in school. That he is basically JD trying to deal with the janitor on Scrubs is one of the best things about this Daredevil Bullseye relationship, because the Kingpin is Daredevil's psychological equal.
Right.
Elektra is Daredevil's spiritual equal, and Bullseye is Daredevil's physical better. It's just that he's so stupid. And this issue with all of my favorite dumb Poindexter moments, oh my god, Daredevil 4 was a masterclass in everything I love about a good Daredevil issue.
Poor Butch.
Oh, I think that one of the things that's really
I think
bothering
he lost
me,
an eye.
yeah, I think Butch is getting a really bad rap for being from the Zdarsky era in the Ahmed era, and I am not here to say that Ahmed doesn't have respect for what came right before this,
Right, no.
but it's feeling a little bit like somebody was told to right the ship.
Well, I mean, oh gosh, that's quite a statement of which I know nothing about, but I'm concerned. The poor guy buried his best buddy, who was a twin of Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock is now also dead, and now there's a Daredevil running around trying to protect him. What would be my
Mike died?
I'm shocked we didn't have a Mike moment
In this economy?
They killed Mike.
Oh, they
yeah.
savagely killed Mike, and it was devastating.
Right, but we put his body in the ground, and then we put like a special stone on top of it, so like something could come back. I always thought that if Matt lived through that fifth
The hand picked up the ring.
like that he would like if they were gonna bring him back, that he was going
He'll
to be brought
definitely be back at some point.
into the I thought Matt would be brought back into Mike's body, and he'd have to claw his way out of the coffin and then start his life, but I guess we all get a gift in different ways.
Chip Zdarsky's non-binary child, Slip Zdarsky, is going to write the most incredible run of Daredevil in 35 years.
Oh, I love that.
Okay. I don't want to be a total simp, but oh my god, when you have Daredevil fight Bullseye, who makes such bad decisions. So, okay, part of why it's important to me that Bullseye is the dumbest man alive is because every time Daredevil goes to fight him, he goes, okay, Bullseye is going to do this. And then what happens in the fight is Daredevil goes, okay, I'm ready for Bullseye to do this. And Bullseye goes, chaos! And throws everything.
So you mean this show?
Yes! I am so thrilled with this Bullseye appearence.
And then this is Matt.
It was. Oh damn it! I'm the dumbest boy in school. Which I relate to so few fictional characters the way I relate to.
That's us right there.
He's so hot. Oh my god.
Yeah, but he's also really, really insecure and stupid, and it's real cute.
My fave.
My life. So I loved this issue, and it felt like a bottle issue, and it felt smart, and it felt like an incredible use of space. And when you have a writer who says, I have a big picture, but there's one moment I want to tell. There's this episode of Teen Wolf where they're all trapped in the school that I think is one of the greatest pieces of television fiction ever. And I think that's I think it's a middling show, but I think that's Northern Exposure levels of how to write a television show.
There's a portion of it where, what did I say, Tori? For 6 full minutes, there's absolutely no dialogue, no nothing in that episode. It was a really, for a show that really played the middle ground, it was a huge swing.
Every so often, they really did it with that show. They really did. What a shame.
This could have been in a horrible comic, and it would have been the greatest issue of all time. It happens to be in a very good comic, so it might not be remembered as quite the shining star because so many stars shine around it, but this for me was I don't know, this is the issue of the series so far. I was thrilled. TK, how did you feel? Because you keep making like hot older brother face, and I'm very curious. Is this like we're into this, we're reading this at the cool coffee shop, or is this something we just look at the Barnes and Noble?
I definitely did not look at the Barnes and Noble. At whom Ben Percy is constantly tweeting about picking up his Predator versus Wolverine run for some reason. I've noticed
read the whole thing. It's so stupid.
At Barnes and Noble?
For some reason, well, it's 2 Barnes and Noble customers. I don't know if they're getting an exclusive first rights at it, but he keeps tweeting like, Barnes and Noble customers, you can read Predator versus Wolverine. And I just, when you said that, it's what made me think of it. I
really, it's like AVP good. It makes me mad. I wish I hated it.
I don't. I'm glad that they're doing fun stuff like that. It's, the nice thing about that is I will never have to we will never have to sit on the show and be like, but where in continuity is it? This can't possibly have happened because Sabretooth killed Wolverine. And I just need a little bit more of that fun right now. Because I honestly, I do think those issues kind of matter. I do think figuring out what the fuck is going on matters. And I don't like harping on it. It makes me feel like a chode, but there's a degree to which it matters. So, Predator versus Wolverine, if it can just be fun for fun's sake and a great Wolverine writer writes it, I think that's awesome. As for this issue, it's funny that you call it a bottle issue. This is the one I said 3, but I meant 4. 4 is really what made me feel grounded in what's happening in Daredevil, because I saw Envy, and even though I thought it was greed at first, I got what was happening immediately. I was like, oh, these are the 7 deadly sins. Matt has to really do the juggling act, because he's got to go get the kid out of prison. Although insane that he goes and gets a child out of prison or out of jail and is like, you can make your own way home, right? I got a meeting.
For penance, please do 12 equations from a 4th grader.
It felt like somebody was like, man, I really enjoyed that Ann Nesenti run of Daredevil where he was so involved with the kids. But what if I didn't have to acknowledge any responsibility for those?
What about if this was like just 70s Sesame Street where no doors are locked and everything's fine?
I actually this is so stupid, but I grew up
hot Hispanic priest.
I grew up singing with a hot Hispanic guy who was on Sesame Street. I grew up with singing with him in a singing group, and the work ethic those people have is, man, if you enjoyed Sesame Street as a child, just thank those people for working so damn hard. They work as hard as comic artists.
You know how to get to Sesame Street? You take the N train. Maybe the Q.
I will say when we got to Erik showing up fully possessed and Matt pulling out the rosary as Daredevil to exorcise him, that was a lot. Saladin Ahmed, that was a lot. Whoever edited this, that was a lot. I can't believe nobody read that script and thought there's other ways around this.
It's just starting to feel like bed knobs and broomsticks with a crucifix.
I mean, a little bit, yeah. It also brings it also brings in this thing where he, Erik gets out of the car and Matt's like, "What? You know who I am?" And from there on out, I'm just lost. I'm really lost about and this goes back to who is this God? I don't know if we're going to answer these questions or if this just isn't the best writing ever. It does really feel like Matt was given a full life. Like he this God retconned reality so that even though Matt was Daredevil for these last years, he also leads a parallel life as this priest. It can't be that he just became this priest a few months ago.
He bi-generated.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that it's kind of the only explanation that makes sense. But then we have this thing where they're like, his life is restarted. Everything about Matt is erased. Everyone that you know that knows Matt remembers, though, because it would be so inconvenient if they didn't. And it's the same way that over in the X books, they're like, the 5 are gone. Resurrection is totally dead. It can never come back. Except for every character that we said died, who we need, Bobby, he didn't actually die. His boyfriend can resurrect him with his emotions. Everybody who we need to come back, who can no longer be resurrected by the 5, isn't dead. How convenient. Even though we tried to sell you on like, this is horrible, this platform of mutants that is so important to their culture, Resurrection, is gone. I hate when they do this, and it feels like the same thing here. We're looking right at the panel where, I'm like, okay, Ben Urich remembers him. No, he doesn't. Nobody remembers him. It's just that the demon, Envy, remembered. Envy knows who he is. And then we go here, and Jen just remembers who he is. But then again, we find out it's the demon. I'm just very confused who knows and who doesn't, and what this is going to mean in 12 months for the character of Daredevil.
Okay, I have horrible news. We might need to delay one of these Daredevil books because I'm not even at the book that I have the most feels about, and I have too many feels about what you just said.
I know.
So the first thing I want to say about what you just said is the idea of Daredevil's identity being something that we could kind of cram away, or we could sort of separate from the public identity of the character any further, is such a relic idea for a book that's meant to be so progressive. So I sort of wonder how much longer we have with Daredevil having a secret identity. Part of it is that he is a lawyer, and that lawyer is, the Star Jonesification of Daredevil, as it were, is something that leaves us in a position where he has to have that duality. It can't be one person. He can't be prosecuting or defending in the courtroom by day and publicly, avowedly kicking ass at night. If it were a police officer, we would not be making a loud joke about it. We would be saying a cab.
Yeah.
And, we need to be very aware that, also maybe perhaps all prosecutors are born bastards. Could just be what it is. The other thing that the Daredevil series offers us that perhaps the Gang War and Black Armor series aren't offering us is an internal identity of Matt that moves us forward. It's not that I don't love everything I get from Elektra. That's my bae. And if only one of them could go forward, I'd probably pick Elektra.
Yeah.
But if there's a book called Daredevil, yeah, he had a good run, didn't he?
He had a good run.
I really want to see what's going on with this character in a way that moves the narrative forward. This is getting me closer to some realization of the Zdarsky era, but I feel like Gang War is purposefully skirting it. Gang War does not want to acknowledge what came just before this because it's trying to say, oh, you like Elektra? Read this. But this book is saying, oh, do you like the story? Read this.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you're bringing. I think this definitely has the makings of something really, really great. I think it's going to kind of, I'm really hoping we get more Elektra once Gang War is done. Because I think that'll help.
I'm going to tell you right now, we did not get an April solicit for more Elektra Daredevil. That book is definitely done in March. It could be we take 2 months off and we get an Elektra book.
Oh, I just meant showing back up in Daredevil and splitting time, because that's what she did in the first one, and then she's been in Gang War.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, yeah, she could definitely. I think she probably will be here sporadically during Gang War. I'll be interested to see how much she comes back into this book. I would really like for her to be getting her own book.
Oh yeah, no, I would always want her to have her own book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's got something exciting going. I'm interested to see. I do think I still stand by my idea that the Zdarsky one particularly the Fist Hand saga was Dante's Inferno, that we're now walking our way through Purgatorio again, and then we're going to have a third, which is Paradiso, and I think that's where we get Karen back, because I don't think we're going to kill Elektra for her to be the one that he's trying to reach at the end. Nico is on mute. So
Marvel, I understand that if I say it on air, I can't own it, but hopefully you look at me and you go, oh, this guy, he's got some cool ideas. It's me. It's Joe Quesada. I've taken back over the company. Hey! Right?
my fave.
Hopefully that was not horribly offensive. But if it was just a little bit offensive, then listen. I think that one of the things that we are looking at is an opportunity to explore who Karen Page is after Deborah Allenwall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her incredible performance of Karen Page has left us in a position where we can re-examine the character. She hasn't been seen since 1999, and that means we have an entire 25 years of comics to reflect on and see how much she's grown. I think we are in a position for Karen Page Devil in a sort of Spider-Gwen way, more than we are in a straight revival of Karen Page. I don't know if it's maybe she's a Ghost Rider because of her connection to Ghost Rider and the fact that she was romantically connected to Johnny Blaze for about 3 years in the 1970s. But I do really feel like Karen Page is due for a resurrection any day, and I would really like to see it be connected to Daredevil as an identity, not connected to Matt Murdock as a love interest.
Yeah.
And I think if nothing else, we've started establishing in the Zdarsky run that Daredevil is an identity. And I would love to pull that thread back because it's been a minute.
Yeah. But I'm very interested in the fact that he has no cares for his anonymous identity swinging around in his collar.
It's so fucking funny that he's like, all I need to do is put this cloth over my head. This fucking idiot thinks just like, nobody knows.
The cops he's swinging past had just seen him be the cute blind priest
in the same jeans with the same shoes.
Same page. And he's just like, hold on, I can take on a Hulk.
Charlie Cox, you have a very distinctive, handsome face. I can tell what it is just from seeing the bottom of it, you jabroni.
Yeah.
Bogey.
Well, that's like all of this talk of Karen and like all of this talk of why don't they just recognize Matt is a lot of what I dealt with the with Black Armor.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's where we're going next, so I'll let Nico run.
Oh no, I mean, please, by all means. I just want to say, like, it's great to see Doctor Strange.
Is it?
It is. No, it is. And let me say why.
Looking like that.
If something seems ridiculous, and you stick Doctor Strange on the page, well, now I'm sort of like, fine. And so this is ridiculous.
Looks like Gene Shalit.
Fuck you, Kevo.
Deeply unfortunate facial hair.
Yeah. Well, so Gallagher and Daredevil are going to team up soon. I can't wait for that. Jesus Christ. However, what I was not prepared for is when I opened Black Armor, I knew that I was in for D.G. Chichester, who was sort of a questioned era because he had been the editor on Late Stage and Ascenti Daredevil. And then when he was tasked to pick the next writer, picked D.G. Chichester, and he became the writer. And D.G. Chichester actually wrote issue 292 way back in March of 1991, and he wrote all the way through the Daredevil issue 332, which was released in July of 1994. So this guy had, a pretty good amount of time on this character. He's, of course, the guy most notable for introducing the Black Armor, reintroducing Elektra to the series.
This was an old question from Tim Burnham, by the way, that I wanted to make sure that we addressed.
Please, thank you so much. So what people don't know, many people don't know, is that when Chichester left Daredevil, it was because so many like hateful fans were writing into Wizard and Marvel saying he's the worst ever. And so he wrote a handful of issues under Alan Smithy, and the same way it didn't go the way Chuck Austin wanted. It did not so much go the way Senor Chichester wanted. But let's get to the thing that I wanted. Jesus Christ, who drew Melvin Potter like my dream bottom from Twink Top?
Oh, I knew. I when I saw it, I was like, Nico's gonna have something to say, and then it like dropped out of my memory. Good for you. I'm so happy for you.
I rarely get this rewarded. Like, there's only one TK in the world. Like, there's only so many people this handsome. And, you know, here he is. Look at him. Look at this Melvin Potter. He's looking beautiful. He's looking deeply inspired by a world in which DG Chichester has happened to watch the Daredevil TV show. Because this is what I thought to myself. I thought to myself, Nico, the most famous run of Daredevil is, of course, the Frank Miller. And the Frank Miller is, of course, so famous for that famous Holy Trinity issue where it is back to back to back Daredevil, Elektra, and Gladiator. And Gladiator is willing to die for his two best friends. And fuck you if you think otherwise. I literally can't hear it. And it is like literally I think it is like one of the only times a team that is not the X-Men embody the X-Men, with Stick leading them and Natasha coming in and out as necessary. It is literally one of the greatest moments in all of comic history. And I said to myself, Gladiator plays such an incredible role in that moment. And the next time I think of a huge role he plays, it's Bendis. So I took a look. Folks at home, my ladies, my gentlemen, all of my royals who do not need a label. I did the math, and it turns out that my precious Melvin appears in 1987's Amazing Spider-Man 287. He then appears in Marvel Comics Presents 98, which I happen to own, so I took it out and I read it, and it's not great, but it shows him choosing to turn on the criminal syndicate that has offered him a high-paying job rather than hurt Daredevil. Oh. He will not hurt Daredevil. And so he chooses to turn on them and put himself optionally in prison to not turn on Daredevil. And the most amazing part is I don't want to say the punchline because I know the term is not punchline, but the emotional climax of the issue is, and unfortunately TK won't get this, Betty visits him in prison and is like, we're married. I'm never leaving you. You're the greatest man I'm like, I can't. Tori, it was the most unbelievable thing. I swear to God.
Melvin has a girlfriend and she's the best.
She is literally the
best.
The best. And so seeing him here, I realized that DG Chichester never once used this character. So as I read the rest of Black Armor, because this is page 2, as I read the rest of the series, one of the things that I was so struck with was the amount of things that were clearly influenced by the success of Daredevil, born of a post-Chichester universe. That said, this was not a bad read, just definitely a little revisionist, like Bravo Housewife level of revisionist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I texted you with 15 different questions about where are we? What are we? I opened up to the first page of like Matt's butt walking down the street, and I was like, welcome back. It's 1992. Nothing can get between Matt and his Calvins. And then it was like, me and my smartphone have all of the info about these holes in the ground. And I was like, I don't know where we are. Karen's alive. Elektra doesn't have hair. Like, where are we? What's going on? And no one can tell me.
I mean, you get to, but you are like one of the magical, like you are really a magical creature because you know why Sabretooth's here. You've read Sabretooth fight Daredevil during the Mutant Massacre. And so like you're not a stranger to why some of these characters are showing up. Whereas I think TK, you might not be as familiar with some of like Hobgoblin fighting Daredevil, though I do think you might be a little bit more familiar with Sabretooth as a result of being such a humongous X-Men fan. You know, that's like, you know, you're number 1, 2 is not a winner, and 3 nobody remembers, right? So I feel like you are, listen, I'm Nelly after the Super Bowl playing with Joe Perry. It's very cool. You know, so I feel like you might have even been aware of the connection between Daredevil and Sabretooth.
I was, yeah.
So how did you feel about Black armoring it up?
You know, when Sabretooth shows up, you get a particular like, oh, he's going kind of for a greatest hits, a best of, but it's all sort of plausible in there. And then we really take a sharp dive into the sewers and the mole people tunnels where Baron von Strucker is doing Thunderdome for entertainment. But it's like not even Thunderdome. It's just, can Lady Deathstrike kill you within 2 minutes? Because it's like with normies.
Well, and it clearly relies on the connection between Daredevil and Mole Man that was forged in the pages of Wade's Daredevil that came 12 years after that. I can't.
Right. And I did look that up because I was like, is there a thing here?
Also, he didn't save him. He didn't help him out the hole. Get him his people backs.
No, he sure did not.
And for the record, that is one of the best Daredevil 2-parters in the entire like 700 issues of Daredevil. That 2-parter, Mole Man dancing with the corpse of his wife, is like one of the most emotionally crippling things I've ever read. How are so many Daredevil comics so good? Tim, where are you?
I mean...
You know, we brought Fisk in. I also, the fact that he feels the need. It's like kind of the opposite of Saladin Ahmed, who's just like, do people remember Daredevil or not? I don't know. I won't be commenting on that. I'm just going to be weird about it. In this, everybody is like, you are not Matt Murdock who wore that red suit before. You are a different person. That armor is black. Are you a demon? Do you hate me? Are you going to kill me? I am Spider-Man. I want to be your friend. I'm scared of you. I'm Wilson Fisk. I'm mad. You're not the other guy.
You embarrassed me in front of the black armor.
I literally knew you were going to do that at some point. I heard it in my head.
You embarrassed yourself in front of the red suit.
The splash of red happened, and I was like, oh, they embarrassed him in front of Daredevil.
All right, real quick. I just want to say, if you've never finished Chichester's run, Strucker shows up. Strucker is actually a part of Chichester's run. And when Strucker leaves, gotta go. When Chichester leaves, he's replaced by Gregory Wright, who is succeeded by Alan Smithy, who is succeeded by somebody else before Kessel comes on. But you know, Strucker actually does play an element into this era of Daredevil. Maybe not my favorite element, but you know, I think that the Chichester iteration of Kingpin is a very suave guy. The Chichester iteration of Kingpin relies a little bit more on a rat packy Kingpin than strictly a mob boss. And it never works for me. I don't like a chummy Kingpin. I like a beat you to death with whatever's on hand Kingpin.
Yep.
And so this Kingpin, while he is rendered beautifully, let's take 10 seconds. The art on this book is wild. I don't think you can come for a single panel. Every panel is drawn beautifully. Does all of it fit 1993 Daredevil? No.
But I don't really feel like that's anybody's litmus test either. No,
I think it's beautiful art. I think some of it tells a story more than it creates a single great panel. And that is sort of the curse of a really good storytelling book. It feels like there's a fluidity that tells the imagery a little bit more than it wants to be like, look at this panel. Some of these panels of the Kingpin, he looks like an angry Humpty Dumpty. But the reality...
Everybody does that, though. It's so rare that you get a great Kingpin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's one Sienkiewicz a generation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like when you put them together, when you lay out this story of Wilson on this page, you understand each one of these panels. You understand each Humpty Dumpty decision. And that's one of the things that I thought made this book such a standout success. Even if I felt some of the ideas were a little antiquated, the art just fucked.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also, it moves very quickly. Like we're here, we're there, we're everywhere. We're go all the time.
Especially for how much is in it. Like every page is a story, every page is a thing, every page is a goddamn Spider-Man appearance. But also, can we just take 10 seconds for wine time and please talk about the absolute Wolf Legrand video that is those two guys in the upper right-hand corner of the middle page?
Yeah, the flashbacks to the gym are kind of my faves. Little Matt has never looked cuter. Batlin Jack looks hot as hell.
I think Lil Matt is portrayed a little bit like a cute little twink, and I think he is these two men's lunch. But it is all in good fun. But I do think there's even something to this issue, specifically choosing to be the issue that included Spider-Man. By having this flashback to young Matt and then having Peter, who Matt met as a kid. And that was something we talked about on the Billy Club, that Matt uniquely knows Peter as a child. Now, this version of Peter thinks he's maybe meeting a new Daredevil, maybe doesn't. It's a really kind of mucky scene. You always sort of assume that Peter's got the wink on it. In general, as a character, but I thought this was perhaps the most middling of the three issues.
I mean, I wonder if Peter's carrying any guilt about the fact that he went in and fucked things up so bad for Daredevil that he had to go up against the Beast on his own and is dead now. So he probably has some feels about seeing a Daredevil again. But that could be me.
TK, you have exactly 0.00 knowledge of 90s Daredevil. I mean, late 90s Daredevil. You've read the Kevin Smith run. I know there's a copy of Guardian Devil up on your bookshelf, right? But, how do you feel about early 90s Daredevil? Did you have any context for this? And also, how much don't you just want to punch that Matt on the end panel there in the face, in a good hot way?
I mean, from the chin down, the face is kind of giving me Cletus Cassidy.
Yes, thank you.
It's not my fave, but
I feel like Robert Stack should warn me about him. Next, you can help us find a man who might be associated with several abductions.
That
exactly. This.
That guy on me on Scruff all the time. I'm not even kidding. He's always come to my... Anyway.
Use my hot tub.
Way to cut that one off. I have zero investment in a very fun way. This can't ruin my image of anything, but I also am not super sold by what is being delivered here. I would be really fascinated if this, Magneto was able to provide something for this current run, just in terms of who Matt is. I don't really think so far that it has. This really just kind of feels like DG Chichester was asked back and was like, I'm just going to do what I want.
Okay,
so
when you say it sounds like a name, but when I say it sounds like something I'm doing to someone's culture. That just makes me feel terrible.
I can't help it. So it is definitely not an unenjoyable read. Overall, I really question Marvel doing these over and over again. Gambit, Magneto,
X-Men Legacy, Storm,
people coming
kind
back.
of Jean Grey.
Yeah,
she's been doing it forever, though.
Yeah, Jean Grey can't stop being talk about me when I was young and cute. I'm dead again.
Did you know I was a model?
Hey guys, I agree.
Remind me, Hobgoblin is a Spider-Man clone named Ben, right? Who's married to a Maudlin something or other.
Oh
queen.
no, but you're a total queen. So she is Goblin Queen.
Uh-huh.
That is Chasm, but usually Scarlet Spider. This is Plot Filler.
Okay.
There's a bunch of them. You know the little friend that Tom Holland Spider-Man has, Ned?
Yes.
That's a Hobgoblin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
Although he has not
talking
become
about this.
Hobgoblin
He
yet.
has not yet, but it's a whole thing about, oh no, the best friends are going to try to kill you. You better not. Oh, but he will.
No,
Who
I'm from an
knows?
alternate universe where he's already the Hobgoblin, and I'm spoiling it for you all.
I've been the Hobgoblin the whole time.
That makes more sense. One of the things that I love is that 90s Marvel was sort of like, everybody can fight all the bad guys and nobody fucking cares. And that was just sort of a way that the 90s operated, especially within certain groups of characters. It was no big deal for somebody, the level of high evolutionary, to fight the X-Men, even if they weren't an X-Men level villain, or like the high evolutionary had never fought I didn't mean high evolutionary, my apologies. Selene had never fought the Fantastic Four. When she fought the Fantastic Four in an annual alongside Beast, Cecilia Reyes, and a few other people. So like there was sort of a sense of 90s freedom at Marvel that meant Daredevil could logically fight Hobgoblin, could logically fight somebody like Mole Man, though I don't know. I feel like Mole Man had no idea who Daredevil was when he met him in the Wade run. So kind of like, you can check that. But this was definitely a fun return to a period I definitely didn't mind. So we're going to move on to our next slide, right? And one of the things that I thought was really cute about this series is that it was so set on making Daredevil a fighter again. Daredevil had to embody the idea of the boxer that we see him come back to whenever he loses his memory. It's so interesting that we're in a period of Daredevil where he's lost his memory and he identifies as a priest instead of as a boxer. One of the things that this highlights for me is that Daredevil usually defaults to his father, but in this iteration, he's defaulted to his mother, and he's challenging the idea of sin as his mother, whereas as his father, he gives into sin as the base form. I think Black Armor pushing us to consider Daredevil as a boxer against the idea of Daredevil as a priest is really the dichotomy of the two sides of Matt Murdock. It's what makes Matt Murdock different than Elektra, and while of course I think Elektra is a bit more interesting as a character, it's what keeps Daredevil so uniquely ensconced in his place in Marvel. No one else really provides that dual identity, a fighter and a clergyman. And seeing the two iterations played out in two different forms of amnesiac Daredevil, it's really interesting to see the ways that we're seeing those things portrayed.
It's true. Go ahead. You go ahead.
You go ahead.
I'll be interested to see if we get any boxing Matt in this Saladin Ahmed run soon.
Oh.
That part of his identity is important.
It is, and Wrath is coming, so we could see it. I was darn, it's all the words is gone. But what I was thinking about is the fact that really we either have people who have really strict secret identities, and we have people who are completely free but then don't have a regular life. And Matt is able to kind of
like Strucker. Strucker is just Baron von Strucker, professional supervillain.
Yeah, he's just a super Nazi. What are we gonna do? And Matt gets to straddle this wonderful line where everybody knows he's Daredevil, but because you can't prove it, what you gonna do?
I'm not Daredevil.
My favorite.
Put it on a shirt.
My favorite.
I really just want to say that there's something so funny about having a Nazi be like, Shred, I am under here. I'm old and I'm a Nazi. Like, this is, I do not think Alan Alda is a Nazi, but I do imagine this is what Alan Alda was like in his 70s, just running up to people and being like, but under here. And like, I have to imagine that on the set of Aaron Sorkin's West Wing season 6 and 7, everybody was like, we're having a Vinnick moment. And
Would you believe it?
Going the other way. Would you believe it?
Wow.
It's just so nice to hear a man really call out the importance of supremacy. So fun to hear the words that are normally dog whistled just really shouted straight into the void. But I was very shocked that when I texted Nico about this yellow Daredevil suit that I did not get a bigger excitement piece. I know it's not the real suit.
Well,
I get it.
It's that it feels like we do this constantly. There's always some tribute to this or tribute to that, or like, oh shit, look at his hoodie. And like, I'm into it. I have that hoodie. But one of the things that I thought was like a little is it felt maybe just a little bit like DG Chichester wrote this for 2021 and it got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. But so many of the things happening here felt like they were meant to capitalize on the success of the Netflix show and then maybe a little bit the She-Hulk show, but also a little bit the appearance in Spider-Man, but also stuff going on in the comics. It just felt like there was stuff about this that missed the timeline bullseye.
Which is great for a comic where we don't know where this comic bullseye is.
Yeah.
No, on the timeline, not the man.
It kind of doesn't matter.
I was about to say no, but it kind of doesn't matter. And there's Mr. Hyde again.
Yep. He's so important to Matt's existence.
I mean, I guess, but like, coming from a world where we have an Elektra in the Daredevil suit right next door, in a mini and in the main, and we have a very dead Karen Page, to see them both in here, not being either of those things, it makes my head hurt.
It's unenjoyable, totally.
And I would just enjoy a little more. This is just a. They don't even have to say it inside of it. If they could just like in the editor's page, just be like, yeah, this is an alternate timeline. Welcome to the hibbity dibbities that we do now. I'd be like, totally. Now I understand. But now I'm just sitting here wondering, like, is Karen going to die again? Is Elektra going to have to shuffle off this mortal coil to get back to the one that we get eventually? What is going on?
And like, I find myself thinking Elektra would be so fit for the Marvel universe as it sits now, and she just needs a really good villain. And if Daredevil has Kingpin, I think a female Kingpin might be a good fit for Elektra, not trying to be feminist about it, but she should have somebody who's already thoroughly ensconced in the Marvel universe. And I think by having her as part of Gang War, you could make Madame Mask a great villainess for Elektra. And if you want to give her something that gives her a really cool Elektra-esque edge, something I think you might be able to do is you might be able to give her like Hollow's Eve masks, like maybe steal it from Hollow's Eve. Hey, I'm not coming for you, sweetheart, but like, you know, cool magic power, give it to the lady with the mask name.
I think that's really interesting. I've always thought that Madame Mask getting like a legit mask upgrade would be very interesting. I do think, you know, it's funny. That seemed to be, at least for this story, giving her Wolverine clone Bologna as her enemy, which is super cool.
Bologna, whose real name is spelled Oscar.
Oh, so we are supposed to know who that is under there.
Yes.
Okay.
So Tori, that is a character that, like X-23, like the female Wolverine, that is a clone of Wolverine. The company that made them made a bunch. And ultimately, Laura went to be an X-Man and found one of the other clones who was aged a little younger named Gabby and took her along with her. So those two girls are over with the X-Men right now. A bunch of the other clones suffered a variety of horrible fates, including Bologna, who it's funny. It was one of those things where the mask with the X on it, I actually, when I first saw it, I was like, is this a Captain Britain or something? I was a little, it just, because it had never gotten brought up, I just wasn't quite sure who it was. And then immediately when you see the claws, it is exactly Bologna's look. It's like everything about her, including the white hair. So it's, Wolverine and Elektra have always had a contentious partnership.
Bologna. I work all the
Bologna!
time.
I know, every time.
I've been
every
waiting
time.
for so long, and you stole it from me.
SDAR.
Tori, I'm so glad you're on your drag race journey because when you get to Bianca Del Rio,
I just met Shangela and was shocked,
Good luck.
appalled.
Nice.
How that first appearance went.
you have no idea how much I love
First.
Angela. It's even literally hard to talk
Well,
about.
because I
All
know
right,
I know
hang
the
on,
name.
hang on.
I know the
So
name.
Hallelujah.
Wolverine and Elektra have a weird relationship. They are often the two people in the room who have killed the most people and who will do the hard thing. They, in our favorite alternate universe, are married and have a child. So the idea that she would have a Wolverine clone as her arch nemesis kind of makes a certain amount of sense.
Oh, I hadn't even considered that. Great point. Thank you for bringing that in.
Oh, I really thought, because you were like, can you believe it's Bologna? And I immediately thought that that's just what we were talking about.
Well, just because we've always said that she is the logical counterpoint for Wolverine in a way that I think Storm is a little bit more a logical counterpoint for Captain America. She stands for the spirit of something.
Yeah.
And, Elektra is a little bit more, I'm going to stab you.
Yeah,
But
they'll both just...
I see Bologna being as an iteration of Elektra's past that can turn into Elektra's current. And so for me, that doesn't speak of nemesis. That speaks of begrudging eventual ally to future girlfriend.
It'll be interesting to see because the Wolverines have attempted to make her good. I think we're in a weird place where, like, there's so many Wolverine associated people. Like, Sabretooth is basically Wolverine who will never be good.
Right.
So we don't really need another one. And yet the idea that there's an X-23, there's a Laura that will never be good.
I think like Wolverine of Potomac, Wolverine of Atlanta.
Yeah, I think there's probably an editorial desire to keep one around who can always be an enemy. So I suspect that Elektra will not be able to mentor her, but I love that as, like, the idea. I think that would be way more fun than keeping her an assassin.
Okay, can we just please talk about whoever said, Leland, listen, do you want to know what's holding you back? It's that you're not a big pink bitch. Can I tell you? I don't know who fucking decided this. But Princess Peach Owlsley
He's beautiful.
is like, as a person who has read literally 1,000 issues of Daredevil, this is one of the most perfect coloring jobs in the history of comics. I lost my shit when I saw that. That is one of the best coloring jobs in comics. What a pink faggot, and I love it so much. That is pink lemonade as a man, and I love
just
it.
wish he and Mr. Hyde were not dressing this way anymore.
Yeah, why hasn't Owlsley gotten an update?
Because
At
they
least
both
to like
look
the vestments.
they both look like Valjean. What is wrong with you?
It's 2023 and
Yeah.
they are
Yeah,
not
that's
at a
the
Ren
point.
fair. I don't know.
And
Dumbest
like,
boy in school.
I mean, I don't know what Owlsley is up to these days, but the Leland I remember
Fine.
was always at least trying to also be a businessman. So
Okay, I will say that if he walked into the stock exchange being like,
even just the bait of
Owl Corp, it would be bad.
even just the corner like National Bank, like
Cut
Not great.
no ribbons in big cake.
Honestly,
Also,
though, he
he's a
looks
little... Go ahead.
good. They would serve him though. That's all. Like he
Yeah, they
looks
would.
weird, but they
but he'd be
wouldn't-
all over TikTok
Yeah, he would be all over TikTok.
or Rick Rock, as the youths at the St. Nicholas say. Rick Rock.
Oh, Lord.
I loved seeing Owl here, but again, I did think that felt a little bit like something that was born of the TV show and felt just a little bit late on that. On the whole, one of the things that this miniseries offered me was so many cool ways to look at Elektra. I felt like this was a book that celebrated the fact that Elektra was Daredevil instead of trying to hide it. All too often, when you have a female step into a male-centric character, it's always about covering up the ways she's female, but making her vulnerable in all of those ways. No, she's tougher than Matt. She's so much tougher than Matt. It's absurd. And as evidenced by the fact that he's literally knocked unconscious like 11 times in black armor. And never, ever do I think Elektra is asleep in the course of gang war. And it's just so cool to see her in so many action poses. We make jokes about the fact that Daredevil is often in very feminized poses. I actually think that Elektra's in more masculine poses than Daredevil quite often. And that's a really cool, refreshing way to feel, even if somebody is willing to be like, no, you're wrong. I'm absolutely here to hear it. But one of the things that I really think is this is celebrating the idea that a female hero doesn't need to be quite as feminine as the more feminized male hero she is a counterpart of. And I'm here to celebrate it, especially in these two.
I'm just interested to see how we can rewrite our understanding of Daredevil based on that idea. Based on the idea that Elektra, the assassin, is a tougher Daredevil and is more willing to... She sacrificed more to become a good hero, to become somebody who tried to make the world a better place. You know, the blunting of the psi tips was such a big change for her. The fact that we constantly see them, these rounded tips on the sides. I love it every single time. And this isn't Danny Rand and the Iron Fist where like, we need to extract that from Danny and never let him near it again, no matter what happens to that character. He should never be Iron Fist again. And which another project that Marvel is wasting, because there are a few characters who should never touch their identities again, and it's a good project to do, to keep a character, because Danny has great history and he's Luke Cage's best friend. He should be around. He can be a superhero. He just can't be Iron Fist. Matt doesn't need to stop being Daredevil, but Elektra's embrace of the role means that what Daredevil is needs to change, and we need to really dig into that understanding.
I also don't know if Elektra can walk away from Daredevil without permanently damaging any connection she gets to have with Matt ever again. I think her decisions to keep doing this as Daredevil make it so that if she ever wants to go dark, like Matt has done many times where he makes terrible decisions and lots of people die, sometimes by his own hands, like she's not going to get to do that because Matt will immediately be like, oh, so we're back to Tuesday again, I see. You know? So I don't think she doesn't get to let up. Ever.
Speaking of we don't get to let up ever, shout out to the absolute best this really not great Luke Cage costume gets to look in a book. That is Luke Cage all the way in that fourth panel there. Sergio Davila really draws the fuck out of Erica Schultz's wonderful script. And he looks so good here, but I do not care for this costume. I constantly think he looks like the man in the iron mask at a local theater production. And it's just not for me. But man, oh man, does he look so cool, so handsome, and so powerful here in a way that makes me root for him. I'm a big Madame Mask guy. I love her. She's so dumb. She's smart as hell. But she also makes terrible decisions based on rage and not like she makes decisions based on love. No, she's exactly her fucking dad. She's so her dad. And
who's her dad?
Count Nefaria.
Who's that?
The guy who killed Thunderbird.
Who's that?
Who's that?
The guy who replaced the original X-Men.
But not the first guy who died. That was a sunspot or something.
No, that's him. He's dead.
He's the one who died that brings them together in the first issue. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Count killed him, and this is his daughter.
And she's exactly her dad.
Right.
She is such a fucking psychopath, exactly like him. And they love using faking their own deaths as like, haha moments. And sometimes people were like, we were just waiting. So I love her. I just think she's so great.
They're also, it's important to know, I mean, like, they say it a lot here, but it's not always clear. They're part of a organized crime syndicate called the Magia, because for some reason Marvel won't say Mafia.
This is those jerks again.
Yeah, so Count Nefaria.
Last time we saw Melvin.
Count Nefaria is insanely powerful. Like, he's got like 3 different superpowers that he could just fuck people up with, and does. But he also like runs the not Italian mafia, the non-ethnically specific mafia.
So are we saying Count Nefaria is Billy Joel?
I mean, a little bit.
Kind of, sorta. No, sorry. I'm having flashbacks to Daredevil getting taken to Europe to participate in a Coliseum match against Gladiator to prove that the mastermind, or the other one, is good enough to be led into this crime syndicate. And then they're just like, yeah, no, this was a terrible idea. Daredevil just kicked all our asses.
And then he flew the plane.
And
justice.
Yeah, and then he stopped in England, and we had more of what's his face, the Plunderer and his brother.
The Plunderer and Khazar. Huzzah! Okay, I'm gonna call it. I'm calling on account of rain. And Magneto hugged her. So here's the thing that I want to say about all of these Daredevil books, and even the 2 Magneto books. We're seeing an era where Marvel is really trying to play multiple versions of the same characters out for money at the same time. And that works for me as long as they're willing to pay out the follow-up. I really want to see what they're doing with Daredevil Black Armor. To what end did we go back to this sort of maligned era of Daredevil? Is Gang War going to be the end of Elektra, or is this the beginning of a really exciting era for her as Daredevil? And is this Saladin Ahmed run really where we're at, or is this something that Marvel's using as a stopgap after what is going to clearly be adapted into the MCU, the Chip Zdarsky run with Devil's Reign? I also wonder the same thing about Magneto. Are we going to see Kindly School Teacher, or are we going to see Sci-Fi Space Epic Magneto? Because I'm in for either, but they are very different creatures. It's an exciting time to be a Marvel fan, getting all multiversal with it after the fact that DC's been doing that for about a decade. How do you guys feel all said and done about what we talked about today?
I take exception to the idea that we are getting multiversal. Marvel has yet to prove that to me, and I'm getting a little annoyed about it. And I'm excited because I see that there is momentum behind the ideas. I'm finding it a little tough to be in this world of, okay, but I know that, you know, Echo just did really well and people are really talking about Daredevil. So is that what we're doing now? Is everything I read in service of getting us to the Daredevil TV show, and how much bad story is going to come as a result of that, and how much good story is going to get, you know, deleted because of that?
No fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really in this place where, like, I'm trying to figure out how to be like, this is happening either way. So how can you get excited about it? But I do find it tough at times. And I do think that embracing multiversality, like for real, not just being like, but Ultimates is one of the ways to go. I will be interested to see if Weapons of X-Men gets us any closer.
We can dream. You know, Tori, I know you weren't a part of the Magneto discussion, but we're seeing some really cool things like Weapons of X-Men, where we're seeing a multiversal exploration of Wolverine. And I know that you're not as much a part of the X-Men universe, where multiversal explorations are kind of a more standard thing. Things like Age of Apocalypse are like regular characters that just come on in and are like, hey, can we be on your X-Force team? You know, Daredevil doesn't quite so often have like, hey, it's me, Batlin Jack from an alternate universe where I'm actually an industrial king. You know, we don't have that running around Daredevil.
You mean the Daredevil and Echo story from the summer?
Listen, it's late and I'm tired.
No, but I totally understand what you mean. That's an
exception, which is why it stands out so clearly for you.
And
right.
It's so recent and so thoughtful.
So how do you feel about the state of Daredevil? 3 titles running amok in the Marvel Universe in a way that really elevates the character into the cultural mindset.
It's really exciting. I think it's super great. I think that the time is now. The day is here for the Daredevil people who've been waiting 60 years on the bench to finally get put in coach. They're ready
I'm
to
only
play.
49 and I've been waiting 60 years.
Exactly. He's getting older by the hour, folks. So yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really great. I think we're all lucky to be walking on this earth at the same time that these issues are coming about. And, maybe someday, all the Wolverines will get stuck in a room and won't be able to be in comics. So they'll have to have 15 Daredevil lines. It'll happen.
Okay, I want to go to that AU. But until we find ourselves there, Tori, where can everybody find you in this U?
You can find me on the internet at smTori. That's Tori with an I, all over your socials. TK, where can we find you?
Listen to her. She's just like bam, 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 bam.
You can find me at TK Elemental on all of your socials. Mr. Kevo, where can everybody find you?
You can find me doing my producer thing over at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. And Comic Captain, Show Captain, sir. Where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me being so grateful for the best team in comics. I really love making this show, especially when we accidentally talk for 1 trillion years. And you guys can find me at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. Please feel free to search the internet for that. And you can find me on SoundCloud. You can find me over on Instagram. What can we call it? So we don't... X-Twitter.
I still just say Twitter. You can go to twitter.com and it takes you there.
Literally, it's the same.
Wow.
Everybody
All the
does.
banners are the same, yeah.
Wow, what a new Coke situation. And search Nico Action. You can find me there. Just don't search Recon. I'm kidding. I've never had a Recon profile, and I definitely wouldn't make it Nico Action. There is also always time for cake. Thank you so much, Tasty Cake, as well as our other amazing fans for coming in, talking, playing, and more. It is always so exciting to get to interact with you. It makes us feel so excited to share our love of things with our love of you guys. And until next time, 6 things to do. 3 of them are no big deal, but 3 of them are pretty personal. Like, comment, subscribe. Okay, those 3 out of the way. That's just, we got to do it for SEO purposes. The 3 that matter. Number 1, stay safe. It's a scary world out there. But that means you got a number 2, be brave. And you know what the easiest way to be brave is? It's number 3, evolve daily. And if you can do that sextuple. Ooh, if you guys can get sextuple with it.
It's a sextuple threat. It's a sex threat.
3 sixes for Daredevil.
Back. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Get us, save us, Kevy. Hit the button. Fucking God.
Nice.
Button.